Read this message, Rick. The gamers shall rise again. Gang, we're just waiting on my guests, okay? You know what? Actually, why wait? Why not just go live now, right? Why have you guys sit on a starting soon screen when my brothers and sisters, could be talking to you? Everyone's on their way. Okay. They'll get here when they get here. I'll pull them in. Gene says, you better have prepared good topics, man. What do you mean? The topic is Sweet Baby Inc. Tonight we're going to be talking about that controversy, okay? I stand for 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜. Hey, Brianna. Well, speak of the devil. Hi. We're live, by the way. Oh, give her a second.
All right. Are we live yet?
Yes, we're live. They can hear us. They can see us. Everyone's raring at the bit to go, right?
All right.
I did give you that role. Hopefully it works. We'll see. I'll remove it at the end.
When we get to it, you just let me know.
We'll do.
How are things going?
Look, we had a roller coaster of a weekend.
Yeah.
I think yesterday went pretty good. Today, we'll see. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous for this. I'm a little nervous for this one.
You and me both. I was like, what did I say yes to? And here we are.
Here we are indeed. I spent most of the weekend looking and trying to contact the people involved in the at least beginnings of this controversy. I reached out. I think I even told you this. I reached out to the person who wrote the Kotaku article. I reached out to a few other authors of various articles that have been written on this. I did a lot and spent a lot of time reading the journalistic response to this. I also contacted what's his name? 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜. I'm not sure how you say it, but he's the guy that made the curated list. I'm sure we'll get into that. And he gave me some information we'll talk about. But yeah. So I
don't mind saying, like, everyone I talk to in the game industry does not want to be associated with this. They do not want to deal with it, and they learned their lesson during Gamergate. So that is very much the conversations that I've had. So I tried to get other people on the show today, and no one is interested.
That's the thing. Like, it's I'll just save it for the show. I'll save it for when people get here, because I think it's going to kick off the discussion. Well, I'll give you this. They say they don't want to be involved in it, but then you read their articles.
Yeah.
And it's a different ballgame. Okay.
But don't you think that's, a journalist there, we'll save it for the show.
Yeah, we'll save it for the show. We'll save it for the show. Like I said, it would kick off discussion. Soyattle, 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜, how are you both doing today?
Check.
Good,
1, 2, 3.
Yep.
Doing good.
Okay, we're live, by the way. We are on screen, on camera. Everyone can hear you and see you. Brianna, you got a camera for us today, or?
Oh, is it not on?
It is not on. Okay.
I'm missing some.
I could have gone the whole show because I was doing makeup like 5 seconds before I came on. I could have just not done any of that.
It's all good. No, we got it.
It's not. It's not.
We got SFO. Let me DM him. He's coming.
SFO late? Oh,
I know, crazy, right?
That is bananas.
Give me a second. But how are the rest of you doing? Soyattle, 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜, how was your weekends? Give me some airtime while I do this.
Oh, I can fill air. No, it's good.
Yeah, my friend celebrated his birthday, so we got ramen, and then we went out for drinks and went back and played Eternal Darkness on GameCube and a couple other games too. Pretty fun.
That's old school.
I'm boring. I clean my house.
Oh, I'm working through Final Fantasy Rebirth. It is so much better than I thought it would be. I didn't really like Final Fantasy VII Remake that much, but I don't know why. Rebirth is just really, really clicking with me. And then Contra comes out, and then Unicorn Overload comes out, and we've got Rise of the Ronin coming out. So I don't know. I gotta play more games.
Yeah, I had mixed feelings about the remake, the FF7 remake.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait, right? Because when the Rebirth came out, all the reviews were glowing that I saw, at least on my timeline, right? Everyone was talking about how great it was. But as it's been out, it's become more mixed. I'm curious. I'm waiting for the PC release in about a year or something. So
Yeah.
we'll see, right?
Well, it's at the end of the month, isn't it?
Is it? Is the PC release at the end of the month?
So. I think so. It's like a month-long exclusive, but I could be wrong about that.
Huh, I'll have to. I'm just not sure, but yeah, I'm waiting. I'll pick it up almost certainly when it gets here, but we'll see. Dev, how's it going?
Hello, what's going on?
Hey, yeah, well, welcome. We're all here now. I think the gang's all together. We have assembled, so let's get this party started. We're gonna have a lot of things to go over today, and I want to get right into it. Gang, welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking about the recent Sweet Baby Inc. controversy. What is it? What exactly happened? What are some of the responses, not only from gamers themselves, but from gaming communities, as well as from developers and game journals? There's been a lot of articles released on that. We'll get into that too. I did, full disclosure, invite the authors of some of these articles on to be with us on the show, such as the author of the Kotaku article. I reached out to her specifically. I have not heard back from any of them with a positive or a negative, which isn't surprising. I'm not a huge channel, but I would have liked their perspective in this discussion as well. But unfortunately, we make do with what we got. So I would like to start off by welcoming my guests, allowing them to introduce themselves, and then maybe giving just a short, concise opening thoughts on this, and then we'll go from there. We're going to start with everyone's favorite, Brianna Wu. Go ahead.
So, Wick, I think most people know me. I want to start today by talking on another scurrilous Gamergate lie that came into our box today. So, the tweet Hohenmeister sent this to me and says he was critiquing the show, like, "Oh, this is going to be a panel tonight with a 0 word per hour and 0 playtime in her Steam library." And then talking about Dev, he goes, "versus a closeted gay guy stuck in the 2016 SJW era." And I just want to start off by saying this is a complete lie. I do want to show my Steam library right here. Has it come on screen? Does that do it?
Oh,
there we go. There we go. Okay, so look at this. Just in the 129 hours on Cyberpunk alone, this is just a lie. I'm not a 0 person, and I would like a retraction on that. Thank you very much.
Fair enough. We've we've gotten through the most.
Also, I'm pretty sure I'm not closeted. So.
Right, I said that. I was like, "Hey, we're gentlemen of distinguished tastes. We're very open about it. There's nothing wrong with it."
And just real quick, can you just stop sharing your screen?
I'm trying to figure out how to do that. Stop streaming. There we go.
Awesome. Great. Excellent. Okay, so any thoughts on the recent kerfuffle that you want to share with us to start us off, or?
Yeah, I mean, I will not be cast in Gamergate 2. I'm going to leave this horror story to the next generation. I'm happy to talk about just some of the meta issues here, but my strongest suggestion to anyone is don't get involved with this. It's not worth what it's going to do to you in your career and your mental health. So that's my statement.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. Appreciate you agreeing to do this. We'll get into the details as we go. Next up, Soyattle. What you got for us?
Hi. So I don't usually talk about this, but I was in the games industry for over a decade. I got some notes here. So I started at Riot around 2011 when it was between 60 and 100 employees. Then I moved on to a couple other jobs, eventually landed at Blizzard Austin when they started doing Java and account development stuff there. And so around 2014, I was neck deep in the games industry. I was a volunteer at Penny Arcade Expo West when 𝕾𝖎𝖙 had to cancel an appearance because of rumors or accusations or whatever. And so I'm somewhat connected with this. And as well, when the Sweet Baby Ink stuff started off, I was on point and making sure that I understood what was going on. So that involved discussions with 𝕾𝖍𝖙, but really the thing that's really pertinent is that I was a part of the 16,000 game developers who lost our jobs, and the reason why is something I'm sure we'll get into. I definitely have a lot of notes about exactly how game developers got in this situation, why the games industry is hurting, and it's not what you think.
It's not what I
really
think.
sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. Apologies.
Well,
You
I've got a
lost
new
your
job now. Yeah, I decided to get a dream job in nuclear, so my career aspirations are completely divergent from games at this point. I can go back to enjoying games instead of having to play them for work.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you, and I think it's a good perspective to have. Thank you. Next up, we have 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙. Hello, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙. I stream on YouTube and Kick. I was involved with Gamergate from about spring 2015 to around 2018. I hosted the St. Louis meetups. I also wrote a 2019 book, Gamergate: First Battle of the Culture War. I hosted panels at conventions, 2 conventions where they happened, Arch Anime and Natsucon, a third one where a group of people on social media pressured them into silencing the event, unfortunately, at Archon in St. Louis. I'm working on a book right now. I've interviewed over 50 people involved in the quote unquote first Gamergate on both sides, and I've heard out a wide variety of perspectives. And I've also spoken with Soyattle here too about Gamergate as well.
Okay. Well, thanks for being here, and I'm sure we'll get into it as we go. I'm sure we'll get your perspective on things, and see if there is any overlap between what's happening now with Sweet Baby Ink and what happened back then. We'll see how this goes. Last but certainly not least, short, fat otaku. Dev, go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Hi. Well, I was part of Gamergate back in the day on the pro GG side. I've been doing nothing but talking about this for the past week. This is the big story right now, you know?
It is, yes.
Yeah. So I think I've been on maybe 4 different shows at this point, like talking about old Gamergate, bringing up old lore, going over what it was like back then, and then comparing it to what's happening right now.
Well, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, it definitely feels like the same sort of event for sure. You know, as someone who has been perpetually outside the entire industry and just like been looking at it from the outside in, it feels like the same event from the bottom up. You know what I mean? So it's going to be fun to get into the comparisons, I think.
It will. Well, I guess to start us off, I guess I'd just like to pose a question, right? Is this Gamergate 2?
Please. Please.
I mean,
let's speed run it this time. Let's go faster.
There's been something like 5 Gamergate 2s over the years, to be honest.
Yeah.
This feels the same, but I'm not sure there's ever going to be a real Gamergate 2, you know?
Yeah.
Memes aside.
Can, just for my audience who, if you've been not following this topic, right? If you've had your Twitter off or you don't follow any kind of people involved in the games industry and things like that, can any volunteers to kind of explain what's happening with the Sweet Baby Ink thing?
We should probably have one person from the progressive side and one person from the not progressive side describe it. So go ahead.
So let me start out. Let me start out with I have a choice, a bisection of the issue, and so then Dev can decide which one it is. Maybe Tachyon will agree, maybe he won't. So Sweet Baby Inc. is either about lazy recycled pleases everyone content and Sweet Baby Incorporated trying to suppress research into their body of work, or is it about feminism making all of our games boring and shutting down anti-feminist critics?
Why can't it be both?
Okay, well, if it's both, and I said this last time on Wick, if it's both, it's like putting lutefisk in my peanut butter. And I cannot ignore the flavor of anti-feminism in my games journalism and my games criticism. I'm sorry, I can't. So if it is about both, it's number 2.
So Soyattle, I think a lot of people, the way they look at it, and this isn't everybody, a lot of people have different critiques of the situation. But I think the way a lot of people look at it is, it seems like there is this clique of people that includes some games journalists and some of the people working for the progressive consulting companies, possibly, and some indie developers. And this group of people hold a social justice ideology, call it whatever you want. And unfortunately, they don't believe in living like in a pluralistic society, and they don't believe in a pluralistic games industry. A lot of them don't. And so, unfortunately, these same people, they have a lot of problems dealing with people who disagree with them. And so that's why they tried to engage in like censorship against Cabrutus in
Well,
the Steam group, for instance,
before
because
hold on,
they can't handle.
Yeah.
sure, hold on. Before we get too deep in the weeds, I don't think we've had a good explanation of what the fuck happened, right? Like, and what the fuck is going on.
Fair,
So
fair, sorry.
let's stick to that. So Soyattle gave his kind of like, I just want kind of like a TLDR of the order of events here as you've seen them, Soyattle.
Oh.
We're going to stick with you for the
Well,
progressive side,
way
and
back.
then we'll go to. Oh,
I don't think anyone
yeah.
is explaining Sweet Baby very well here. I feel like that's not happening.
say, can you
yeah,
say? Hold on. Can you repeat that? Woo, I didn't hear it.
You can call me Brie. So
Sure,
I don't think anyone was kind of explaining Sweet Baby really well. So let me just give a super Deb. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But long story short, there was a group of people out there that were investigating. They noticed that a whole bunch of games that did not do very well were all consulted on by this company, Sweet Baby Inc. Sweet Baby Inc. Apologies. It contained some people, including what was their name again? Felix. What was their last name?
Felix
Deb?
Kramer. Yeah.
Felix Kramer, who was a major figure from the Gamergate era, and a whole bunch of people that seem to have, your typical what you would pejoratively call SJW progressive values. And then a whole bunch of people started to basically investigate it. They're attributing some wide attributes to the work that they did on these games. Some people are saying it's why it failed. In some cases, like Saints Row Reboot, even I would agree with Dev that the politics on that game were so distracting with the story that did not make it a better product. But then too, some games that were objectively extremely good, like Alan Wake 2. So it's basically, you've got these kind of self-appointed freelance journalists out there. They're digging in and they are concerned that basically this company is pushing games in a political direction they find objectionable. Is that the gist of it?
That is more or less the gist of it.
Yeah.
I mean, my view has always been that you can be a progressive and make a good game. There's many good games out there made by progressives. The issue is that when a progressive makes a bad game, they hide behind their progressivism. And that's their excuse. Like, well, you just don't like us because we're progressives and you're a Gamergate man baby chud. And it's like, well, no, it's because your game sucks.
Is progressivism what put live services and microtransactions into Suicide Squad versus the Justice League? And is progressivism why the publisher decided to block out all of the mainstream games press from pre-reviewing that game?
No, but progressivism is why you had all of those cringy scenes of Harley Quinn girl bossing her way through the story and killing all the characters that people actually like.
Well, isn't that just like all the rest of the Harley Quinn films?
Yeah, they suck too.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, then it's before then, because I've got this video from 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙, who I think is a major figure in 2.0 or whatever iteration of Gamergate we're on. And way back in November of 2022, he posted this video about ESG worming its way into video games, and that's environmental, social, and governance scoring. It's a kind of a risk assessment made to show investors whether or not a stock or a security is something that could have unrealized risks in these categories. And so his claim is that, oh, this is just wokeifying games, and he's been talking about this for years. And I think even Tachyon was very generous and said, like, hey, looks like this has been brought up, before Kiwi Farms. It was brought up on 8chan and 4chan, and this has been sort of boiling. I thought it had to do with when Alan Wake 2 press and Sweet Baby Inc. was sort of identified by the press as a good thing in Alan Wake 2. And this is sort of the backlash to that good press, in my opinion.
I mean, maybe.
Well, the current.
You go ahead, Taki. No, go ahead.
Okay, so the current. I do think it is important to note, though, that there were people talking about this on various online forums, including Kiwi Farms and 8chan and Reddit, and NeoGAF too, presumably others, prior to all this happening. And there were a couple of YouTubers who talked about Sweet Baby Inc. too prior to, like months ago, prior to this controversy. But the current controversy, the reason this all blew up was because of the Streisand effect.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Streisand.
Because of the harassment.
The harassment.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Hold on.
You want to call it harassment? Then we can talk about harassment on both sides. You're an expert on this.
Let's
So
take it step by step, please. Go ahead, Dev.
Step by step. So the current iteration of the story, because if we're going to go back to 2022 and ESG, it's a much wider topic, right? Because that stuff's been looked at by people on the internet for like a decade now. But a decade now, right? I know like ESG didn't really come around till like 2020-ish, but like there were precursors, people talking about the Chinese social credit score. Like you can follow basically a logic trail all the way back probably to Gamergate 1, which is why everyone talks about Gamergate when they're talking about this. This specific step of the conversation is about basically it's about 𝕵𝖎𝖎. He made the Steam page. He said, these are all the games that Sweet Baby Inc. have worked on. They call it the Sweet Baby Inc. detector or detected or something. He makes this Steam page. The Steam page, people laugh at it. So it's a bit of a joke because we all kind of knew that Sweet Baby Inc. was a thing. It was kind of floating around in the cultural space. But the minute that people who worked at Sweet Baby Inc. turned on the Steam page and said, hold on, mass report this, get this taken down, fuck this guy, get him banned off Steam, that's when it blew up into a whole thing. And that's how these things always work, right? It's like someone is doing something you don't like, you attack them for it, and then they get massive amounts of support from the internet because of the Streisand effect.
And what were they doing that you think that the developers didn't like?
Well, putting a bunch of their games in a list. And then saying, don't play these games. Yeah.
And review bombing? Review bombing, definitely.
Were they?
In fact, yes. And I've got some screenshots that I can pull up on
Sure.
exactly what is.
If you want, here, I'll give you permission to share your screen if you'd like. Hold on, give me one second.
You can pull them up, but I'm going to tell you right now, I don't view review bombing as that big of a sin.
Oh, okay. So if there's like a bit of coordination behind the scenes, there's a forum or something, and we're all like, hey, this is bad. These people should be punished. They need to have their scores go down on Metacritic and on Steam, and yeah, get them. Then that's not okay.
Well, let me tell you exactly what's going on, though. Here, so if you look at, for example, the Skullgirl situation from last summer, you'll see a whole bunch of people review bomb that game because it was in the spotlight. But also, you can also tell that a bunch of those people never played Skullgirls. They have less than 1 hour because it's Steam, right? You can see how much they played the game when they leave a review. Some people played the game for hundreds of hours. Some people played the game for 0 hours. So if it's a whole bunch of reviews with 0 hours on them, also I think Steam actually allows you to remove those reviews. In fact, if no one's actually played the game, they do because they did it for Skullgirls. So. Yeah. If it's a situation where you have a bunch of people who have played these games and they leave negative reviews because they're pissed off about how the game was made or some people involved, that's fine to me. I'm completely okay with that.
So if I can jump in here, this may be a hot take. Like I understand as a developer, it hurts to have your game reviewed bomb, but at a certain point, like this is just the industry, right? It's not like when a developer puts out their game, they don't ask their friends to go rate and review it positively, right? So the other thing happens in the other direction. I would also really argue that the like Metacritic reviews, I don't know how y'all see it, but I've always interpreted this as in SFO, you're probably not going to like this, but like what does the kind of angry like typical gamer review think of this game overall? Because I don't think it's like a lot of people like me that go in and spend a lot of time on Metacritic. So I take that with like a grain of salt, and then if I'm looking for something from like someone I trust, I will go to SkillUp or, one of the other reviewers that I really trust on there. So I kind of feel like a certain amount of internet reactivity is based into a Steam review or a Metacritic score. Am I alone in that? Do you not agree?
I completely agree with you. Actually, I completely agree with
Yeah.
you. For example, if you look at like Rotten Tomatoes, right? There's a reason they
Yeah.
have the critic score and they have the audience score,
Mm-hmm.
because that is where the audience can come out and just bomb a movie if they don't like it, even if critics do, right? And I think that sort of two-tiered system is actually pretty good. I like
Just real
oh,
quick,
what's up?
Soyattle, you are sharing your screen, so if you're opening things,
Yeah.
just be aware, because I just saw you open something, and I
No.
don't want a VOD situation.
To be
right?
Open the
be
Vosh
sorted.
folder. Do it. Do it.
Anyway, but yeah,
There you go.
so just I'll let you go, Dev, in a second, but just to contextualize what's on the screen here, Soyattle is sharing, I'm assuming, screenshots of what he considers review bombs, and we'll have that up while Dev talks. Dev, continue, please.
Right. So I mean, I'm looking at this right now. It says that, not recommended, 0.2 hours on record. The only thing that it says is Sweet Baby Inc. Right. Now,
Right.
because I've seen, I saw the Skullgirls developers delete a bunch of reviews like this, then surely these people can do it as well. If these are illegitimate reviews, they can be removed from Steam. I'm not too worried
And
about
I think that's happened for Suicide Squad versus the Justice League. If you actually go and look, this one's Assassin's Creed Valhalla. That was restricted in a different way that I found a little funny. But basically, yes, I think that Suicide Squad versus Justice League has been scrubbed, but some of these others are not. And so if I'm looking at this list, we've got a whole bunch of games. Two of them, Dungeons and Dragons, Dark Alliance, and what was the other one? It was Assassin's Creed Valhalla. When I navigated those pages from the curator list, it told me the content was not available. Now, Tachyon said on his phone it worked, so maybe it was a glitch. But there seemed to be, for the big game companies, there's definitely the power. They have the sway over Steam to get these negative scores removed, these negative reviews removed. However, if we look at games like NeoCab, Kingdom 80s, Shadow Gambit, and Battle Shapers, those are all indie games that had Sweet Baby Inc. content in them, and they're probably feeling awful about this. Like they might not have the sway to get these scores, these reviews removed from Twitch. If you listen to Thor, who's just blown up recently on Twitch, he says that he's powerless to kind of remove bad reviews, negative reviews from his game as an indie developer. He's just at the mercy of the crowd, where giant corporations, well, they can kind of put their thumb on the scale a little bit.
Well,
That's a-
Soyattle, do we have any reason to think that 𝕵𝖫𝖎 tried to direct people to leave false reviews? Or is it just that
Oh,
millions of people know about this, and so
it's a
therefore
coincidence.
now, well, it's a relatively small number of negative reviews.
just are you done sharing the screen, or?
You can take it off.
Okay.
I'll tell
And
you when I
obviously,
got
it
more.
just seems like if millions of people know about this topic,
Maybe
it's
if you
highly
could stop streaming
controversial.
too.
Some people are going to leave negative reviews, even if they haven't played the game. I don't support people doing that, but it seems like that's going to happen. And unless you have evidence that they specifically encouraged people to do this, 𝕵𝖫𝖎 or like other moderators in the group, then it doesn't seem like
It
there's anything
doesn't.
necessarily wrong.
After all we've been over this, after all, like how the timeline lines up, how the like Assassin's Creed scores went from mostly positive to mixed recently. It like the last screen that I had up showed only the recent reviews and how they took a massive turn. There's it's just sort of a consequence of having this list up. And
Isn't that a
and to be
criticism
clear,
of these
go ahead.
platforms? I mean, it seems to me like this has been a problem with Metacritic and the Steam review system for a long time. I really put the onus on these systems that rate to kind of look at these huge surges and ask like, is there something we need to be doing differently? One of I don't want this to be about Gamergate, but I think one of the lessons that game developers should have taken from that era, and one of the few things I can say in favor of the Gamergaters is if you try to shut these people up, it doesn't go well. And look, I've gotten criticism of my game. I think Revolution 60 is a much better game than like it got a reputation of being. But at a certain point, it's like you've got to let the internet have its say, because trying to silence it just makes things worse. So I really put the criticism here on these platforms.
I guess my
Yeah, I mean,
question.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
My question, right? Because again, I've read a lot on this. I was talking to Brianna before the rest of you came in. I talked to 𝕵𝖎𝖎 in DMs. He shared screenshots of the 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 employee telling people to mass report him and things like that. I guess my question is, given that, as you said, Bree, the lesson should be to let them have their say. The articles I've read, and I've read a few of them. There's one in Guardian, there's one in Kotaku, there's a few other articles that were published in other various things. They all don't seem to be doing that, right? They all seem to be saying that this isn't about the quality of the games, but this is merely a harassment campaign.
Yeah.
That this is people who don't like black people in their games, who don't like women in their games, who don't like feminism in their games, who think the games are going woke, they don't like their pronouns and things like that. And this is their way to direct review bombs, as Soyattle has pointed out. Like, what would be the response to that? Like, because that seems to be the party line, at least amongst the journalists.
I think it's true.
You think that's true? It's just that's what's happening here?
I think it's their motivation for that. I think there's a certain segment of the gaming population that gets very, very hostile when they perceive politics they don't like. This is just a reality. I mean, can anyone disagree with this?
A segment, yeah, not all,
Yeah.
obviously, but
No,
there are
not all,
definitely.
but
I have definitely
there's
like. So
yeah,
so here, I've seen some people who have been like, "There's a black person in this game. It's woke," and it's like, are you fucking retarded?
yeah,
No, that's not what's happening. No, no, that's obviously too far in the other direction now, right? But there's definitely some people who that they're tired. They're tired of basically having morality spoon fed to them in their art, and it's been happening now for like over a decade, and they're just fucking tired of it, and now they're lashing out, right? I mean, when we were on Adam and Sitch, Brianna, there was
mhm,
that image that I pulled up where it's like someone a progressive says that everything's political, and they can't tell the difference between Metal Gear Solid, Bioshock, and then the picture of Trump bumping into Peter Griffin in Family Guy, right? And like
yeah,
that's what's going on there, is that those games, they did have a political conversation, but they did not beat you over the head with it. They did not tell you what to think or how to act. They
sure,
allowed you to. Yeah, I'll even say, like, I remember there was a controversy over Far Cry. Was it 5? The one
yes,
with like the Christian cult, right?
yes.
Was it 5? Yeah.
It
And there
didn't
was a
go hard
controversy back
enough.
then.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's controversy back then of people saying like this makes right wingers, look really bad. It was actually a really good game. It was
yeah,
actually a really good game. Um,
love that
so
game.
it's not about we don't want politics in the game. It's that we want it to be better than what we have had, basically. And there's been some
Yeah.
shit fucking games.
And Dev,
I
if I can
disagree.
add on to that for just this will be super quick. There's also a constituency that goes the other way. Like, look at what happened with Cyberpunk 2077, the Mix It Up girl. Like, if you've played this game, there's a trans woman with a very large penis that's like wearing a leotard, right? And you see the outline of it, and it's all over Night City. It's everywhere, right? And trans Twitter got really, really upset about this game because it did not, in their view, like have trans representation the way that they wanted. So I'm just saying, like, this isn't a unique feature of the right or the left. This is everybody nowadays. Like, I think there's a larger constituency on the right for this in games, but it's just factually true. It exists both ways.
You
Yeah.
had you were going to contest a point that they were saying there. Please.
That it's not about politics. That's sort of like, it's not about politics in games. It's just that it's lazy politics in games. And if that's your position, then you actually should be looking at the the 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 GDC talk and thinking in your mind based, because she is approached by companies who are like, yeah, we kind of feel we need like a token black person in this game, and she's like, whoa, don't just do that. That's lazy. That's stupid. That's really gonna piss people like me off. Can we actually make a good story out of this like weird political selection you've made? And so they're there to serve that corporate need.
So
If that's all they were doing, I would agree with you. Yes.
So what is
do we have evidence otherwise?
Hold on. What is the just so we can be clear, okay? Because the problem with again, I did a lot of research on this before the show over the weekend. I spent a lot of time looking into a lot of things. The problem is it seems like we're having like 3 different conversations and 3 different kinds of threads that people are all trying to pull on, and they are only semi-collected. So I want to hear from Tachyon and from Dev. What is the specific accusation on the company, Sweet Baby Inc.? What are I'm putting aside the harassment employee thing, right? Like, which is a big deal, right? But for the company itself, why are people mad at the company itself? What is the accusation of what they are doing? Go ahead.
So, do you mind if I take this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so you're probably gonna have different people with different critiques, but one thing that I've heard doing a live stream with talking with people about this recently is that a lot of people, they are skeptical that these hyper progressive consulting firms, and like, let's be honest, like that is what some of these are. This Sweet Baby Inc. is funded by 𝕾𝖍𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜, and her co-founder both say they call themselves white settlers, and they appear to have like some of these people appear to have like extreme political ideologies, which is fine. You can make progressive games, you can make games that have those politics in it. I'm not opposed to that at all. But I think a lot of people look at this and they're asking themselves, are these progressive consulting firms that put a lot of emphasis on politics, are they making the games better or not? And as a consumer, a lot of them are thinking either no or I'm not sure, but I don't like some of the stuff that their employees are doing and saying, and it seems like they don't seem like super great people. And so they don't trust them to make good games.
This will
Make
take
the
10
games better.
seconds. This is a 10-second question. I gave a very specific example with Cyberpunk. You're using words like extreme politics, extreme progressive politics. Can you give an example of extreme progressive politics?
And just real
Yeah, I
quick
think calling yourself
just
a
real
white
quick for a
settler.
housekeeping thing. Soyattle, can you stop staring at your screen just so we can have the
Okay, fine.
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that
Wait, what's wrong
calling
with them staring at the
yourself
screen?
I get
calling yourself a white settler,
Okay.
I think
Sorry.
that is probably
in the game,
indicative that
in the
you're
game,
probably
in the game. that
yeah,
makes
I
it to the
don't
pod, that
specifically
makes it
know
to
of
the pod.
specific
You
changes
don't
that they
have
made.
a specific. This is a
We need
huge
more transparency.
scandal. So you don't have a specific thing you can point to saying this is hyper progressive. You're just
I got it.
I have one, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's literally the black girl in AC Valhalla. No, sorry.
Okay. No. This is one that I went over with you on Out of the Brianna. It was the it was the Assassin's Creed Valhalla one where they completely rewrote the historical story of the Vikings invading the UK and raping and pillaging, bringing back women, stealing a bunch of stuff, killing people. They recast them as migrants who are fleeing their ravaged homeland to try and build a better life. And like, oh my god, this is some European migrant shit all over again. That's what you're casting this fucking story as, and it's ridiculous.
I see. This is where it's hard for me to make the connection because we don't know that Sweet Baby Inc. did that, and I think that this is a company with a long history in these games of kind of oversimplifying history and not looking at some of the most divisive themes. So I don't know if that's super strong evidence.
That's true. So it could have been some other terrible person working on the game. Yes, I can see that.
Fair, or corporate meddling.
Hmm. Well, this is the thing, because when I interviewed that that guy who worked on Saints Row, the impression that I got was that people at the top, and I know we've had this conversation like 4 times, Brianna, so it's going to sound
You do
boring
your
to you.
thing. You do
But
your thing.
yeah. This is new to everyone else. So people at the top of the company, they're not progressive. They're not ideologically devoted to this sort of politics. They want to do what makes them money, and they're told by people in the company, this is what'll make you money. Put that pride flag in the game. It'll make you money. And then the guys at the top are like, really? Like, we don't fucking know. We just want to make money. And so they're told to do it, right? And that's what ended up happening with Saints Row, because when I interviewed the guy who worked on it, he's like, yeah, they brought in these writing consultants. We weren't allowed to countermand them. They were writing shit. And the people at the top were utterly convinced this is the way to go, and it wasn't the way to go. So it's not just progressivism. It's progressivism combined with people at the top of these companies who are completely out of touch. They don't know what their audiences want, and they've basically been bamboozled.
But that's not all. There's more.
What else? Tell me about it.
Okay, so you know about all the layoffs we've had. We've had about 200,000 people in tech laid off in 2023. Over 16,000 specific layoffs in the games industry, and there's an estimate that only 1 out of every 6 are going to retain their jobs in the next 6 months.
Only 1 out of every 6?
Yep.
Damn.
Only 1 out of every 6. So some of the layoffs is because the COVID lockdowns went away. Some of it is like we're doing more user generated content. And here's the big kicker. There's also a surprise tax law change in 2023. It's in section 174. It changes how you can write off development costs. Instead of right there in that year, you have to amortize it over 5 or 15. If it's an H-1B, you have to go over 15 years. So this was there because the GOP and Donald Trump needed to offset the change in the top marginal tax bracket from 39.6 to 37%. So, Jeff Bezos and all the other American billionaires get a huge, like $2.2 trillion tax reduction. And then 5 years later, they kick the can down the road and say, oh yeah, 5 years later, this is going to come into effect. It'll balance our budget, right? They're fiscally responsible someday. Not today when we pass the tax cut, but 5 years down the road when it's not their problem. And so what does this have to do? Wick is going to ask.
That is my question.
Sweet Baby Inc. is a vendor providing services. You get to write that off immediately. They're in Canada. They're not a part of your American tax structure. They're literally a vendor writing services. So okay, so do you think there's a possibility that the 3 or 4 writers out of our 500-person studio are a little overworked and we need some outside consultants to pick up the slack? Yeah, and we get to write it off. Great. I'm going to make a lot of money and get to write off all of those, contractor scripts right away instead of having to amortize it over 5 years.
I mean, that sounds plausible, right? I don't know anything about this specific instance that you're talking about, but I do know something similar happened with journalists during
Right.
2018, 2019. It was during Trump's 4 years at some point, where basically Obama passed something that basically it basically provided a whole bunch of money for journalism, and then it was 5 years again. In 5 years, when it ran out, there was a shit ton of journalist layoffs, and I think it was 2018 or 2019 when a whole bunch of them lost their jobs because the money ran out. And it was all just kind of provided for by by the U.S.
Well,
government.
So just
we also had Gawker get sued out of existence. That's another
sure.
thing.
Well, they deserved that though, for fuck's sake.
to
Yeah.
to bring this kind of to bring this a little bit back, right? And I just want to pose some questions to the group. Do we think that the games industry today is in a better or a worse place than it was 10 years ago? What do we think?
Much worse.
Generally worse, but the highs are higher, I think.
What do you mean by that? Can you elaborate?
There have been some really good games in the past 5
Oh,
years.
fair.
Some really
Okay.
fucking good
Fair
games.
enough.
The best games
yeah.
are doing really well, and
Yep.
the fans are rewarding them. But it is kind of a flash in the pan. Like we saw Pal World up and down. Helldivers 2 is going to be up and down. And hopefully more of us get to play those games and enjoy them together. But, and hopefully they don't like disappear in 6 months. We're not flavor of the month, because this is the alternative between a live services game like Kill the Justice League and Helldivers 2 is our, or Helldivers 2 has seasons, so maybe not. But Pal World, if that's one and done, is that going to leave someone who didn't catch it on the wave with FOMO, with missing out on a good thing? And is the developer going to be putting money on the table? Which is the reason in the games industry, the reason we have in-app purchases and season passes and all this bullshit to keep the game alive.
Yeah, just to bounce off of that, I mean, when Gamergate started, I remember going to GDC and seeing a talk about Mass Effect 3 coming out, right? Think about how different the game industry is today than Mass Effect 3, back when DLC was like cutting edge for a game to have, right? It seems to me, and please correct me if you disagree with this, but I think one of the forces that's happened in the game industry is budgets have exploded. I remember when Alpha Protocol came out. This is a completely forgotten Sega published title.
I haven't forgotten it.
I love that game. It came out in
Me
the aftermath of Mass Effect, right? I'd probably guess from having played this was probably a $10 to $20 million game to develop. It's not a AAA game, it's just a solid A release, like by a major publisher. Those games barely exist today. And the budgets for these games have exploded as everyone's trying to be the next Call of Duty or, like major thing. So there are a lot of things to critique about the game industry. And I think most of them, honestly, are the money men that have like corrupted this whole field and made it really hard to bring a game like I don't think a Final Fantasy Tactics could be made today. Like there's a reason you don't get games like that anymore. So one of the things I find so frustrating with the Sweet Baby Inc. thing is, yeah, gamers are right that games suck nowadays. You are completely correct about that. But you're blaming all the wrong forces for it, and you're thinking about the wrong problems.
But if
Oh, well,
if
hold
I'm
on. I don't think I am though,
Please,
because
no,
yeah,
not you. I'm talking
I'm
about
yeah,
gamers overall. Yeah,
yeah. So, because I'm only partially blaming Sweet Baby Inc. I don't, they're a small piece of the puzzle. I admit that,
sure.
right? Like there's a lot going on here.
yeah, I
Sorry,
guess
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, th- when we talk about how a lot of the criticisms for Sweet Baby Inc. is that they have somehow, and I'm sure you've all seen the clips of them of their, what was her name? Please remind me.
Kim
Kim
Belair?
Belair?
Yeah,
Or
thank you.
Yeah.
Where she's saying, oh, you should really pressure your marketing team, pressure your sales team into getting us on board because we're going to make your game profitable. We're going to appeal to the money men. So, 𝕵𝖎, when you talk about how money men have ruined the game, it seems to be like connected to the criticism of Sweet Baby Inc. that Sweet Baby Inc. has used that fact and pressured these money men, or somehow tricked them, or gotten into bed with them, or the accusations vary, and they are being used to sell kind of a soulless product. Does that make sense?
They're playing the game 100%. Yeah, they're coming in and telling you that there's a constituency for this particular point of view and that they can do it better and cheaper than other people can do. I think, whether that's true or not is an open question, but I think you're dead on with that analysis.
And
And just one
yeah,
more super quick thing, because Dev, we talked about this the other day. I really think a jump off point from here is talking about the incestuous nature of the game industry, top to bottom, development side, production side, journalism side. It is a much smaller place than people give it credit for. And I think that
Mhm.
also has major ramifications for the transparency and the integrity in many of the choices that are made.
when
Yeah,
we
I mean that was the big thing during Gamergate 1, right? For those of us who weren't out there harassing people, that was the big thing. It was like, listen, we realized that man, one story that I haven't talked about yet, like, was it called like Kim in Dinosaur Land was the game? It was some game that was submitted to the IGF, and because they weren't friends with people who ran the IGF like everyone else was, who won, their game didn't even get played. Right, like it got judged without getting played because they had access to the runtime. So it was one of these situations where it's like, you have a bunch of indie devs who probably make decent stuff and they're decent people, but because they're on the outside of the clique, they don't get a fair shake. And this isn't solely a capitalist problem; it's also a nepotism problem, and that's independent of what economic model you use.
it's
Right.
hard
But
to
yeah,
if I may, it's hard to
sure.
critique that because I gotta tell you, gang, every industry, including the military that I've worked for, has operated on similar principles. It's not what you
Mhm.
know, it's who you know at the end of the day. And so to say that the indie game developers who network with and work with the judges get more favorable ratings just makes sense to me. It doesn't seem to be all that nefarious, nor does it seem to be all that outside of the norm of just how things work. So when we talk about people being transparent with Sweet Baby Inc., because I want to tie this back into what's happening now, um, w-
Well, they
do
also had
do
sex with them, Wick.
developers owe the consumers transparency on working with Sweet Baby Inc.? Is that something that they even owe the
Mm.
consumer?
Whether or not people are have different views on that too, of course. But like whether or not they owe the transparency, I don't feel like obligated to do so. But it could be nice, and it could help dispel some of the things that people's worst fears about the situation if they knew more information about the process.
Well, how about this? How about this? Right. So if you actually play these games, you'll see Sweet Baby Inc. credited in the credits. Right. So it is transparent. It is there if you want to go look for it. Um, but I mean, part of the point of the Steam list, which they objected really hard to, was the transparency, because that's part of it too. You have people coming out and saying, "Hey, these people worked on this game." That seems fine to me.
So
Was
I
it
want to come back
was
to
it
this is before we leap off of this because it was a
yeah.
topic ago. Dev, I want to come back to something you were talking about, which is you
Sure.
have a concern that these indie awards are not being judged fairly, and I think that's a fair critique as someone who is participated in giving like awards to games, right? But I think like this is what I sometimes find frustrating. Is like an indie award is not the only kind of like way that things get promoted. In my view, in 2024, a much bigger variable that anyone that works in marketing will tell you is much more important for getting your game word of mouth is Twitch. You know, who's playing it, who's streaming it, who's giving it attention. And if you look at who the biggest Twitch streamers are, yeah, they tend to come from a very certain cohort of gamers and they tend to have very similar tastes. So I think the truth is that no matter where your politics are, no matter what your message is, no matter what your game like type is, you're going to have a certain uphill battle. And I think if you talk to many, women, POC, LGBT game developers that make games that appeal to those kind of like progressive ideas, I think they would probably tell you they're fighting a much bigger uphill battle.
So one of
See,
the
I completely agree with you. I completely
But
agree with you on
Yeah.
that. Well,
wait, wait, wait,
just real
wait. You
quick.
mean
Let me just
you,
answer real quick though,
yeah,
because
answer real
I,
quick.
I, I think I have like a 20-second answer here. So I completely agree with you. I
Mhm.
probably wouldn't make the IGF argument today. 10 years ago, they were much more important than they are now, for sure. Now it is all about streamers and YouTubers, but back then that was a big deal, which is why I talked about it 10 years ago.
Yeah, on the subject of streamers and YouTubers and things, I think this importance of Twitch and large viewerships and things like that and how it affects gaming and the game industry. Um, I got a little bit of a taste of that when I tried to get the author of the Kotaku article on. She had been tweeting, or they, I'm not sure exactly. They had been tweeting about how they really wanted to talk about this, right? And they were spamming like, please, Hassan, have me on, right? I really need to talk about this, and really need to get this off my chest and things like that. So if you don't have that kind of connection or that kind of clout, like I don't, I'm a very small YouTube boy, right? You don't get a piece of that pie, right? You aren't considered important. And I think that is at play not just in journalism about the gaming industry, but also with the gaming industry itself. It makes sense though, right? Like, obviously you want the biggest names to play your games. Obviously you want the biggest names to talk about your topic, and it's just a good use of your time. So I'm not exactly complaining here, but I'm just kind of drawing parallels. But I know Soyattle wanted to say some things. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna soy about Brianna removing white men like me from video games, and is that what it's about? Because I don't think it really
What are you
isn't.
talking
It's
about?
What?
It was because it's so hard as a woman or a minority to be involved in these spaces. Does that mean removing white dudes? Does that mean that?
No one
doesn't?
said that or hinted to that in any way.
Okay.
No
Just
one.
checking, because 𝕵𝖎𝖙 is saying this. He is literally saying this on his videos. And that's what drives controversies like this. It's what
Right.
brings out
Yeah.
the base.
I have no idea who this guy is, man. Like,
Yeah.
sorry.
I saw
Okay.
one
I've
video.
never heard of him. I've never heard of
just
him before.
recently.
I sent you 5 videos and you sent me one back, 𝕵𝖎𝖙.
I didn't watch all those.
Okay.
So no offense.
Go ahead, 𝕵𝖎𝖙, please.
Wick,
All right.
you asked. Unless you have more to say, sorry.
No, that's it.
Okay, so Wick, you asked earlier about her quote from GDC, and we could read the full thing if you want, or I think it is worth asking questions about the sort of so-called protection racket kind of language. Like Anita Sarkeesian had this tweet. I'm going to send it to you guys from 2019. She says, "Hey, CD Projekt Red, I'm always available for consulting because it sure sounds like you might need it before the whole of the internet drags you for what sounds like some potentially sexist representations, which we all know you've struggled with in the past." Now that strikes me as being somewhat protection rackety, very much so. Now the 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 comments a little bit. She did say that she jokes about that a lot, and she did also caveat her statement by saying that if the game developers in the room agree with her perspective, then they should go to the marketing people, which is a little bit different than publicly blasting them on Twitter, a specific company, and demanding that they hire you.
Is this
Or
something
else
that
they're
people
sexist.
feel are happening though, on a systemic basis, or on a big enough basis to be actually worthy of criticism though? I confess I'm not in games development. I've never have been, right? I do follow some on Twitter. I do read on occasion rock paper shotgun and things like that, right? I don't see this as a big thing. It just, like when Dev was first telling me about this whole Sweet Baby controversy, I'm going to be real with you, it seemed like a nothing burger until they got to the harassment part by the employee. And then it was like, okay, maybe this is a big deal, right? Because that's, I think, the line for me. When employees
Did you watch the 2 hours, which
it's
I
a line
did.
for
I
2
did
hours?
watch the 2 hours, but that was mostly like litigating.
It was
anyway.
backstory, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I think it is a line for me too, like going after 𝕵𝖎𝖙 Steam account. Like for me, I sort of, instead of showing my hours played, I'll tell you the value of my Steam account. It's between $3,000 and $12,000. So if you look at the harm that could have been done to 𝕵𝖎𝖙, we're talking, let's say triple that. Let's say like $45,000 of harm to an individual if we're going by torts. They kind of triple damages in some cases like this. So is that victory if you get that much out of these independent game developers and the major corporations? If you get like one contract canceled from Sweet Baby Inc., is that victory, or do you want more?
That is a good question.
Yeah.
To Dev and to 𝕵𝖎𝖙, like, what's the win state for you? Since you guys, let's be real, Gamergaters lost. They lost.
Well,
Back
to
in the day.
clarify though,
I think they lost
both
Tachyon,
in
yeah.
26. That's fine, but in 2016, most of them felt like they won, according to Brad Glasgow and Chris Ferguson's research. And when I interview people now, most of them think that it was either somewhat or fully successful.
But my
Mostly somewhat,
point,
though, I think.
my point though is, what does, to Soyattle's question, what does victory look like with Sweet Baby Inc? What changes do you want to see? What do you want to see happen? Right, that would satisfy you. That would right whatever wrong you think is going on here. Please.
Well, I can make it very easy. I know exactly. Leave the list up. Be public about who actually what games are worked on by that company, and then allow people to decide whether or not they want to buy them. And then if things go the way that I think they'll go, those games will bomb. They will stop selling, and then eventually that company will stop getting work.
So
You
I have a
mean
comment on that.
I think that's a
Hold
great
on,
Hold
answer.
on. One at a time. We're gonna go to 𝕵𝖧, and then we're gonna go to Tachyon, then we're gonna go to Soyattle, and that's the order we're gonna go in. Go ahead.
I agree with you, Dev, and I think one of the really good things about that is a congenital problem in the game industry is getting credit for your work. And I think demystifying, like making sure all these side companies and the people that work on them are properly credited in the games, like this is a huge issue. So it's transparency for the consumer and it's better for the workers in many ways. I do want to say though, Tachyon, I have a very straightforward question for you right now. Why are you not showing your face today? My face is here. My real name is here. Anyone can look me up in my public comments. Why are you hiding, even though you're an author, behind an anonymous account? Why do you do that?
Well, I am public. My name is Kevin McDonald,
Okay,
and
cool.
I've written a book. I'm not on camera. I don't have a webcam. I do tons and tons of book interviews that go like 7 hours.
Okay,
I don't feel like
fair
being
enough.
on
Let
camera.
me
I
just
didn't
come
buy one.
back to my point then. Why do so many of the people doing this do so from anonymous accounts? What is the reason for that? Because they don't want to get investigated and harassed and all that kind of stuff, right? So you can understand why there is also an argument on the other side for people not wanting to get harassed by people in the game industry. I can tell you people that worked on Call of Duty, they've had to get law enforcement involved because they changed the way a gun was working and they got crazy death threats about it. There is a very weird element of the game industry with a player base that can go nuts and harass the hell out of you. And that's true for game developers, it's true for journalists, it's true for everyone. So I'm for transparency, but I understand why there's this impetus not to want transparency when there is a huge harassment problem that everyone faces.
Do you want to
Yeah, I mean,
respond? Go ahead.
I agree that obviously anyone who's engaging in harassment, I don't support that. Don't do that. Don't send people death threats. I think everybody on the panel is in agreement about this. So
Yeah.
you asked Wick about
What
about
does
what can be
victory look
done.
like in this
Yeah,
situation? Yes.
I don't know. I mean, I don't necessarily consider myself like to be one of like the activists necessarily working against like SBI or progressive consulting groups. I think that like most of the people involved, they have a similar answer from what I've talked to some people, not everybody, of course, not even a representative sample that I've talked to, but I've talked to some people about this controversy. And a lot of the people who are upset, they just say, yeah, I think that, obviously they shouldn't engage in the harassment and they should just let it stay up and let people make their own purchasing decisions. That seems to be the general consensus. Now, like as for like an idealized world, I think we're probably gonna have to we're gonna have to look at like the actions beyond just the Sweet Baby Inc. controversy. We're gonna have to look at like the way the games press and like the Guardian too covered it, because you mentioned the articles earlier, Wick, and I sent you that list. This is almost certainly incomplete by now, but Kotaku, The Gamer, PC Gamer, Eurogamer, Aftermath, Mary Sue, The Guardian, and Media Matters, none of them actually talk about what happened. None of them talk
Oh,
about the Steam group at all. Now, PC Gamer does mention
Right.
that Sweet Baby Inc. employees mentioned it on Twitter. They didn't say that they directed their followers to go and mass flag them, though. So none of all these gaming sites, and the Guardian was especially egregious. They don't cover the story. We know that some of the writers who wrote these articles, like Alyssa Mercante of Kotaku, they knew that there was more to the story. We know because of COD. This was from the Side Scrollers podcast. Actually, they interviewed 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜, and COD, this user of the Discord, did an interview with Alyssa Mercante that she didn't run with, and she didn't include any details from, where he told her about the story. And this was not in her article at all. And it's not just her, it's several other articles. Now, obviously, don't send them like death threats or anything, but like ideally, like the people who deliberately lied, like probably should be terminated or severely reprimanded. And there needs to be like an apology and retraction from these companies, these gaming sites.
What do we think
Will
of
that mean
Go
that
ahead.
will that mean that the list will come down if they sort of face those consequences? Because I'm
That's up
looking
to
at all
𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙.
these.
He's a free individual. He can make his own decisions.
Okay, because I'm looking at all these indie dev studios. You know, not EA, not the folks who make Dungeons and Dragons and Assassin's Creed and Suicide Squad, but the indie devs who have like 3-4 games on their Steam pages. Like they don't even have a Steam page. They're so small. What's going to happen with them?
Well, the people who are subscribed to this curator group, they're going to see that Sweet Baby Inc. worked on those games, and they can decide for themselves if they want to buy it or not.
And maybe like buy it, review it, and refund it, because that's happening. They're getting 0.2 hour, and so are you going to, like Dev, like you advocated to have Steam reform this and get them to maybe automatically scrub any review with less than an hour? Is that something you'd be in support of?
Yeah, probably. I think. I mean, I don't know, because you could like buy a game, play it for 15 minutes, it's complete and utter shit, like the Gollum game from last year or something, and then leave a negative review, right? Like I don't know. I
Right.
do know that you can report reviews that are very clearly like from some sort of review bomb campaign. You can report them to Steam, and Steam does take action. So
So
use
I
the
want to
service.
come back to this because I feel like we skated past this, and I really want everyone to engage on this because I think this is a really central point of contention I haven't heard an answer to. And look, to be clear, what I'm about to talk about is not a left versus right problem. And to really illustrate that, I'm going to give an example of the left doing this. So again, to come back to Cyberpunk Night City, that mix it up example, there was a huge like controversy about a woman with a penis in this game and like the genitals or something. There was no non-binary option, right? And then a Cyberpunk developer used a hashtag won't be erased, and a bunch of the fringe leftists doxed and harassed the hell out of them. Right. So the thing I feel like there's tension on, and again, this is not a right versus left issue, but there is this extremely acrimonious player base that does get really weirdly parasocial with devs and journalists that make the games. So it's not surprising to me when, I think we all agree, ideally the Sweet Baby Inc. thing, like this should be public, they should leave that list up. I also understand the kind of defensive crouch that makes people make bad decisions. So how do we agree at all that there is some legitimate frustration within the game industry at just nut jobs coming and making your life a living hell?
Yes, and it's
Yeah,
not just the games industry, right?
Oh yeah.
Because
right.
it's just the internet at this point, man.
Exactly.
I mean, I know that there's definitely been cancel brigades from the right that have gone after left leaning people, and the other way around. Like there's an Antifa group in my city that doxed me, right? I know what it's like. It seems to be just part of the fabric of the internet at this point. That there's going to be some retards out there who take it offline, and it's unacceptable no matter which way it goes.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. No, I look. This is way far and beyond just a games industry problem. I do want to talk about ways to kind of mitigate this and ways to kind of address it when it does happen, because the frustrating part for me is that they aren't wrong, right? People like Kotaku and these other things, they aren't wrong when they say that much of this, not all of it, maybe even not a majority of it, but much of it is acrimonious because they have pronouns in their it's just it's a political statement that is being made by the people who are critical of them. They are doing it because they don't want. They say they don't want politics in the game, but it's not. It's a political statement they're
It-
making. And
and
so they aren't wrong when they highlight that, but it misses, I think, the larger point of a lot of the criticism. And I don't know how to square this circle. Does that make sense? Soyattle, you're trying to go? I don't mean to talk over
oh,
you.
I
Go
was going
ahead.
to say that Tachyon even has the data for this. Like he went over the data from his own pre-selected group, had a survey done, and basically 91% or more agree this is culture war, and this is
Well,
late
you should,
Gamergate, right?
yeah, but also it should be pointed out that the way they asked the question was a little bit weird. But yes, a lot of people they don't think it's necessarily like Gamergate was the culture war. A lot of people do think that. But the question was whether or not they think that I could just pull up the data, shoot.
Yeah,
Except it'll be just a minute. So if you want to keep going, I'll pull up the data in the
yeah.
meantime. Okay.
So yeah, this is this is Tachyon's own
Well,
survey
this is
in
Chris
like the
Ferguson and Brad
okay
Glasgow's research, not mine. I
okay.
interviewed both of
So
them though.
but where did the participants came from? An open call to people who supported Gamergate pretty late in the arc, and so this is a
Well, December
pre-selected group of
2015,
supporters.
January 2016. Of
Okay,
Yeah, but I think it's pretty
yeah,
good data. But yeah.
you're right, but it is a pre-selected group, and this was like after Not Your Shield, after Anti-Harassment Squad, after all of the the reform of the Gamergate movement had taken place, and the best you have is like 91% say, yeah, I kind of don't want feminists deciding what are in some games. That's the reason I'm involved in this. That's the reason that we need to be aware and be activated. This is
Mm.
Is that
this is
what
the
it's a culture war
population.
means in that data? I haven't seen this before. I don't know what's going on.
Are you familiar with
Is that
Brad
what that means?
Glasgow's work, SFO?
I've heard the name, but I don't remember who he is.
Okay. He was a journalist. He worked with Chris Ferguson I think at the time he might have been with the University of Central Florida. Now he's with Stetson University. And they actually have a peer-reviewed paper. Here it is. I'll pull it up on
Okay.
Worked with
screen
him a
in one
lot
second.
during Gamergate. I'm surprised y'all don't know this. He did a lot of the work behind the scenes, trying to basically put together, SJ Society of Professional Journalist panels. He tried to put together like some independent awards from the right and the left for outstanding game journalism that I was
No,
a
that's
part of.
Koretsky.
It's been a decade.
Unless Brad Glasgow helped with that too, or Chris.
You know, I did, it's been a decade, so thank you for the correction. I know I did some work with Brad Glasgow during Gamergate. Maybe I'm conflating the two. I apologize.
Yeah, it's been a while. And
Yeah.
just a housekeeping thing while we go. It is a little past the top of the hour. Gang, if you're liking this content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, right? Like, help me, put a Wick detected Steam group out, and send all these hundreds of thousands of people my way. That'd be great. $5 from Artemis Fowl to say I agree with Woo here. People should be leveraging a lot of her inside knowledge on how things worked. She is a good avenue for information. Thank you for the
Sweet.
$5. And gang, and we will be reading super chats at the top of the next hour too. If you want to send them, helps me make money. I'm sorry for interrupting the exchange. Continue, but if
So how can we kind of move this industry? Because like one of the reasons one of the reasons I really don't want to get involved this time around is it feels like no one learned the right lesson from Gamergate. Like I am on record of saying I think in many ways the left has just wholly adopted the exact same Gamergate playbook, uses it shamelessly. They use it on me all the time since October 7th.
Hogwarts
I'm on
Legacy,
record,
yeah.
right, 100%. I'm on record like saying that. So so I think there are two things that are true here, right? I am willing a decade later to admit that there is a culture of the game industry, and especially in journalism, that is very I wish I had a more artful word, but incestuous, right? And I think that gamers are kind of picking up on some of the disdain that their critics, their supposed champions actually have for them. I also think it's true that games journalism is so much less powerful and important to the success of games today that like IGN and Polygon are just like maybe a third as culturally powerful as they were a decade ago. So it feels like if y'all want a bigger voice, it seems like there's a whole like it seems like the problem is less so, and it seems like there's a solution, right? Because you can go find a YouTuber that makes reviews you agree with, and you can get information about games that's kind of according to your liking. We can all do that. At the same time, I really do think there's this harassment problem that has not gotten better. When I got involved with Gamergate, my mission was to get harassment policy put into law. I worked with people like Congresswoman Catherine Clark, and I completely failed at this, right? As a result of that, our entire political discourse is kind of like poison today. So, like, we've got these two situations. Like, reactionary gamers are everywhere. The answer is clearly not like telling them to shut up, gamers are canceled, like gamers are over, your audience doesn't have to be gamers. That's not working. Like, how can we kind of like solve this or try to frack and live together, right? Like, what's the policy specifically that gets us to where we need to go?
None. Sorry for the black pill.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
I don't think it's a policy issue. It seems to be more of a cultural issue. It seems
Yeah,
to be more the fact that we're all spending more time on social media. We're getting exposed to other ideas less. We've become less tolerant of other ideas, ideas that
true.
we disagree with. We get kind of cordoned off into our own echo chambers, and as
Yep.
soon as we encounter somebody who believes something different, we react very, very negatively because it's so new and it's so offensive to us. You know,
Yeah.
it's almost like my generation was the last halfway normal generation because we existed before the internet existed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
So
do.
on some level, this is not a problem that can be solved with government policy. I don't think.
So,
I
well, let me tell you something you can do as an individual. Like, go out there. This is a good practice. Like, Dev, one of the reasons we became friends is I enjoy listening to perspectives that I disagree with. And for you as an individual, like, go click that SFO video that you think is going to piss you off and try
Yes,
to
do it.
engage with those arguments. It is a win-win situation, no matter which political side you're on, because you can't beat your enemy if you don't understand them. And from my own side, progressives, our ability to engage with ideas we disagree with, we're a 90-pound weakling right now. We just go straight to the name calling, and we cannot like engage with anyone's arguments, which is why so many people are turning away from us. So,
but
Yeah,
Bree,
this is all
yeah,
true. Yeah,
go
this is
ahead.
hold
all
on.
true.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
real quick,
okay, go ahead.
Bree, like, what is to be engaged with, right? How do you engage with someone making an what okay, I'll just say it. An unhinged fucking rant about how pronouns in Starfield has ruined the game. Oh my god, this is the soyest thing that has ever happened. And you're listening to this and it's embarrassing, right, for that person. You've played the game and Starfield was okay. It was all right, right? It wasn't anything to
It was less than okay, to be
well,
honest.
I
I
thought it was
agree.
fine, but it's not going to win any awards in my book. Like I played it, I finished it, I'm done, right? But like that wasn't the problem with Starfield, right? Even if you
Yeah.
dislike the game, that wasn't the problem. How do you engage with that? It's impossible to engage. Like, other than mocking it and making fun of it, what do I do?
You can't engage with that. We did mock it, and mocking is a very effective political tactic. Dev, I think you have a video about that actually. But I think like you've got to use your higher brain function. And when someone is telling you something that upsets you or kind of conflicts with your beliefs, like let's take a very concrete example here. Tachyon Blue at the beginning of this was talking about a list that just put information out of games that Sweet Baby had worked on, right? This is a transparency thing, it's public information, it's criticism. Like you can engage with that in good faith, right? I think we gotta get past this idea that everything that upsets us is automatically harassment, because it's not.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll even give you the other example, in fact, because this is something that you might have even done it to me, Brianna, back in the day. But
Mhm.
I know someone who is a big name in Gamergate did it to me back in the day, where it's like, I did just want to talk about the issue, and I was immediately blocked and called a racist or whatever. Right? It was like, well, what the fuck? Like, and it's one of those like I remember to go back again to Adam and Sitch. I pointed out on that stream, Brianna, that a lot
Mhm.
of gamers, they weren't far right. They weren't ridiculous people. They were people they were basically bullied growing up, and they were kind of shat on by a lot of other people. And then they got to, let's say, their early 20s, and they expected the only people who ever had their back in the cultural sphere were the people at the head of the games industry, who would
Yep.
come on and defend them from religious Christians trying to censor games and take away games because they're too violent or whatever. And I said, well, you guys have our backs. We are the nerds who don't get any play with women, and we have nothing going on in our lives, but at least you guys have our backs. And then 2014 comes, and they don't have our backs. It was a major backstab, which is why I think a lot of people, like, man, thinking back on it, in 2015, Sargon was a Bernie bro. All right.
Yeah.
And he's very conservative now. I think a lot of people were just lost from the left due to a culture war, because the people at the top of of the gaming space just did not want to admit when they had fucked up.
Yeah.
Well, I got to engage with that a little bit because I think we need to pay attention to the source material for a lot of these things. And I know that Tachyon is kind of in denial about how it is connected. And I don't just mean the fall of Gawker is connected to Peter Thiel, is connected to Steve Bannon, is connected to Donald Trump. I mean, philosophically, and I tried to get him to watch this video from James Lindsay about how the right is trying to fight progressive and calling it the culture war and developing very, very sophisticated tactics and how to engage with the subject and how to dismantle and build power. And if we're not ready to deal with that, we are really, really fucked. Like we
Well,
we absolutely need to go over the soldiers like heels versus babyface, and we need to find his influencers. We need to find the intellectuals of the right and engage with their strategies, their tactics, and find a way to dismantle the movement at its face.
so I do want to say real quick. I will respond to that, but Wick, I can't screen share for some reason, not to the group here.
I got to give you a roll. What do you want to screen share?
Well, um, Soyattle asked me to bring up the study from Chris
Okay.
Ferguson.
Here, give me a second. Try now.
Okay.
Should work.
All right, give me 2 seconds there.
Everybody is screen sharing today.
I get it. It's a thing. Well, we want receipts, and receipts are good. So I'm gonna remove all these rules after you guys are done. But
Okay, here it is. Can you all see it?
I
Yep.
can.
Okay. All right. So question 38. Now, I assume you were referring to one of the later ones, unless it's what you were referring to,
No,
Soyattle. But we'll go over a few.
the
Yeah.
specific questions.
So this was asking, many of the people who support Gamergate have different goals and different interpretations of what Gamergate is fighting against. Out of 100% of its efforts, how much has Gamergate focused on the following aspects in your view? And they could rank each one up into 100%. So ethics and games journalism topped out as a plurality there, followed by fighting the social justice ideology, and then fighting against censorship too. So the average number of people said that 36% of Gamergate. This is asking them about what Gamergate has done so far, not necessarily the direction they want it to go in, mind you. I think that's actually the next question.
Right. And I just
Well,
want to
they
point
say,
out is that like my reaction to this was I hate this chart because it actively hides the sentiment and you are very
well,
gracious
they
and thank
go,
you
they go.
for
We're gonna go down
yeah.
and read the other ones too.
Yeah.
And then this is what people
Um,
think it should focus on. 42% or 42 average rather, ethics and games journalism, 23% against social justice ideology, and 33% against censorship. 5% of people said other. That could have been people talking about any number of things, but possibly industry issues too, like microtransactions, things like that.
Where's
It
the
was a big
agree
cohort.
disagrees? Yeah.
Is this relevant
Yeah,
to Sweet Baby?
I'm.
Well, you mentioned a specific thing,
Can you
Soil. Was
tie
it?
in this to the larger conversation? That's all.
It has always been about the culture war, and so these agree disagrees break down to the ones about feminism.
Okay.
Feminist
Roughly,
critics
Can I
would
ask a
censor your games if they had your way. So 77% strongly agreed, 19% somewhat agreed, 1.8% neither agree nor disagree, and then less than 1% for disagree.
yeah.
Okay,
And
that
then
makes
there I think
sense.
there's another one too, which is game developers have changed their games for the worse as a result of feminism. 48% disagree or agreed, strongly agreed.
All right.
And
42%
then
somewhat,
yeah.
6% neither agreed nor disagree, 2% somewhat disagree, and 1% strongly disagree.
That makes a lot of sense. Can I ask a clarifying question here? Did I hear you say, Soy, that your goal, your plan, I may have misheard this, so apologies if I did. Did I hear that you wanted to defeat and like get right-wing messages out of the video game industry? Because I would have a really big problem
Oh
with
no,
if
no,
yeah,
I want to be able to have the equipment to face them in my daily life
okay,
and
good.
not
I
back
knew I
down. Not
misunderstood you.
Yeah,
Okay, all right,
I'm
good.
not trying to paper things over. I want everyone to have the capability to defeat these questions head on every day, because we're not going to win in the general election if we're not ready to do that. If we can't talk to people, during Halloween right before the election about issues that matter.
I don't know if I agree with that. What I want is a game industry where every single constituency can have a game for them, right? So Dev did a really good video on 𝕾𝖎 that's coming out. It's got a hypersexualized woman as the protagonist. It's kind of an old school character design. I love these games. I like porny games. I'm embarrassed to say it's my guilty pleasure. I'm a constituency for this game, and so are a lot of other people, right? It's not, I enjoy feminist games too, but I don't have any problem with this type of thing existing in the marketplace. I think if you want like a game with like your Bioshock, Ayn Rand, libertarian vibes, I want that game to exist. I also want games to exist like Boyfriend Dungeon that like starts off and it's like, hey, is it okay if we talk about sexual trauma? Hey, are you asexual? Are you comfortable with romance scenes? Hey, what are your genders? Are you male, female, or non-binary? Like that kind of extreme take on it. I want for that to exist too. And I think it's really important we get past this idea that for me to enjoy games, you have to not enjoy games. Like the answer is like we all can, everyone has their say, they can create the art that they want, and the best games succeed in the marketplace. That's what I want to move towards.
It does
Yeah,
Yeah,
seem.
I
same.
strongly agree with that, Brianna.
Yeah.
Actually, it's great that we found common ground.
We all say this when we're on these panels together, and maybe I just have the most reasonable people in the world on my show right now,
No,
which is
my opinion
possible.
has changed on this week
Oh,
drastically. So
fair enough. But
yeah,
the
Yeah,
the
I
reason
don't think this was you 10 years ago. Yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
the
Pretty
reason
much,
I'm
yeah.
saying this is because, as Tachyon said, here we may all agree on that, but when you go out into the world, right, when you look at the responses from all sides on these kinds of things, it is always coming up. So with 𝕾𝖎, I think it's a perfect example. There's a lot of people who I saw from the left who were very unhappy with that game, saying it was over-sexualized, it was anti-feminist, it was all these things, right, and wanted... Hogwarts Legacy is perhaps a better example, right? Much more clear-cut. I think everyone's knows the controversy around that. Your first appearance on my show, actually, Brianna, was you coming to talk negatively about Hogwarts Legacy.
So,
Right?
and I'll say it again here. I thought that a boycott would hurt Hogwarts Legacy. And look, this is fine. Like if right wingers want to say, I don't want to buy this game because I don't like that it has non-binary pronouns in it, God bless. That's your right as consumers, right? I don't like J.K. Rowling, right? I thought that it was reasonable to try to put together a boycott of that. the boycott absolutely failed. And because I care about trans people and trans rights, I said, we need to be honest and say that gamers are not going to stand with this, and we need to find other ways to address this issue, right?
Yeah.
So I have no issue with calling for a boycott. That's just like the right wing has every right in the world to do that if they don't like Sweet
But
Baby.
and I agree with you in principle, but what tends to happen is we call for a boycott when it has something we don't like in a game, and so the pressures it puts on the industry are causing very bad games to be produced because they try to be as anodyne and inoffensive and, dare I say, unfun as possible because they want to appeal to the largest audience possible without triggering one of these sides into calling for a boycott and getting ass mad. That's my problem with the gaming industry today. But go on, please.
I want
I did have a
to challenge this.
disclosure to make actually just super fast. I should, just so the audience is aware, I did participate in that survey that we cited earlier.
Okay.
So I was a
Sure.
participant, and then I also I did interview 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 too, the game developer from Hogwarts Legacy. So
Yeah.
That's
So I want to challenge, like, in the case of a boycott, and especially as it pertains to Palestine and other things that are happening in the world, is it sort of right that we form social cliques around this kind of a movement, like a boycott? Like, okay, I can't talk to him at the party because he didn't boycott Hogwarts Legacy.
Well, there's two different things happening here, right? Because there's the boycott where you don't buy a product and you don't, right? And you don't engage with it. And then there's the boycott where you harass people who do. The first
Yes.
one is fine, the second one isn't.
correct. Yeah, I mean, like there were people out there that put together lists of, like streamers that played, Hogwarts Legacy, right? I think
Mhm.
this is a very hard tactic to defend, right? So yeah,
What's
I
the
fully
difference
agree with
between that and putting together a list of games that have worked with Sweet Baby Inc? Why you guys all seem to be okay with that list? Why are we not in the
Well,
order
The
in like
harassment. It's the
it's the
harassment.
harassment, yeah.
Yeah.
So
really?
for example, if you got a list together of everyone who played Hogwarts Legacy, like personally is a little bit deranged, but you can do that. The issue is that they went to people and they harassed them for streaming it, which was completely beyond the pale, completely unacceptable. Shouldn't be happening.
I understand, but
I
we can
like
draw hold on. We can draw a
okay.
connection between them making a list of people who played Hogwarts Legacy and the harassment they received. Because I'm sure, right? Some of the people who made that list, maybe not all. Okay, well, look, the left is so unhinged right now. Maybe this is just an incorrect statement. But ideally, you would have someone who would say, you know what? I don't want to watch anyone who plays Hogwarts Legacy. I don't want to harass them or anything. I just don't want to follow them. I don't want to watch them, right? And I'm going to make a list so other people who also don't want that can just not watch them. They don't want harassment and things like that done. But we saw how it can lead to harassment. So when you have someone making like a 𝕵𝖍𝖎𝖙 there, making a list saying, hey, I don't want to play any of these games because I don't like Sweet Baby Inc. I don't like what they do. I really don't want to purchase anything involved with them. So I'm going to make a list right there. I don't want any harassment to come. But then we see harassment coming. Is there not a parallel between these two things? What is the specific
There is,
difference?
yeah. There's a parallel, but in both cases, I would say you don't blame the list, you blame the harassers. The list
Yeah,
itself is fine.
that's exactly right.
Yep.
Okay. Fair
And
enough.
it's got to
I,
be said, like, I know it sucks to have your game torn apart. I know bad reviews hurt. I wish gamers would be more kind because game development is so hard. And no matter the worst game you've ever played out there, someone has done 80-hour weeks trying to make that game good for you, and they did the best that they could. And I think if gamers understood the experience of making games, they'd be a little bit less abrasive with their criticism. But that said, like, don't make art if you don't want to get critiqued. Don't go into politics if you don't want to get critiqued, and don't make art if you don't like want people to have an opinion about what you make. It's just not reasonable.
How do we make games fun again, gang?
Expel all the feminists, firstly. Get rid of
Base.
all the women.
Excellent. Okay.
we need more like baby ghosts funds, and Dev, maybe you can make one for white dudes like me, and we'll have like all of these grant programs run in
Based.
Canada and make
Well,
all
well,
these
you know what?
different game studios. Yeah.
I'll start up the Master Race Fund, okay? It funds only white men, and we can get white male games. That's how it'll be.
I think
I sense
Go ahead.
more 4X games coming. I sense more like RTS games coming, and I'm here for it.
Man, can we had a good like a good solid RTS game again? Like it's been so long since I played a like one that I've fallen in love with. Maybe that's just me getting older. I don't know. But Brianna wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's the Terminator Dark Fate game RTS. That's really bad. Don't play that. But no, I would say I think games need to go back to basics. I think it's time to get away from these $200 million games. We need to have smaller games with smaller scope, and we just need to be able to present that, which is I think one of the good things about the Game Pass model is it does give a chance for games like Unpacking or these smaller games to have an audience. One of the things is the game development tools to make games are so much more sophisticated today, and tasks that you used to have to get an intern to get carpal tunnel doing, like UV mapping. We've actually got really good tools to automate that nowadays and do textures and things like that. Automatic LOD in Unreal Engine 5 is actually pretty decent. So I think that one of the problems is when we get better tools that make game development faster, what has happened is we just keep going even further. We make the game longer, we make the scope bigger. I think we need to go the opposite way. I think we need to move back to PlayStation length games and get the audience more used to that. Because if a game is only costing 10, 20, 30 million dollars to make, we'll have a lot of different kind of games on the market, we'll have more people employed, and we'll have more chances to have fun stuff.
See, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, right? I think as we've improved tools to make games, and it's become easier to make games in some ways, that's allowed a lot of people who couldn't make games before to make games. That's both good and bad, because sometimes you have some real gems in there where they just needed to get over a technological hurdle they couldn't get over 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Now they can. That's great. That also means there's a whole bunch of people who have no fucking business making games that are now making games, and they're shitty games.
Name
Right?
names. Go ahead.
Well, it's one of those things where I know here I'll use some lefty terms just for you, Soyattle, okay? As you one of the big downsides of democratizing something is you allow a lot of people who are I don't know, at the bottom of the barrel to get in, and now they can start doing things, and it's like, yeah, but you guys aren't good at this. You can't make a good game, actually, some of you. But now that you have enough tools rather than it being a pipe dream that they would be gate kept out of due to quality concerns, now they can just make their shitty game and just shit it out onto Steam. It's like, well, okay, who does that help? You know what I mean? It's one of those. This is a larger philosophical discussion, but basically, as you, as a very general statement, as you improve access to something, the quality of it goes down.
I'm going to read unless you have a direct comment to that. I do have some super chats I want to get to. So
no, let's go back and forth on the philosophy. So yeah, because you brought it up earlier. You were like, we don't need to go after 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 Babyface over him soying out over the pronouns in Starfield. We got to go after the intellectuals of the right wing. I think you said something like that, right?
Yes, exactly. No, it's to be able to confront the horse shit like digital homicide. Here's your names. Like if you remember this snafu back in 2017. Oh god. This was the horrible asset flip developer that tried to sue the 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙.
Oh, okay.
And,
all right.
yeah.
This sounds vaguely familiar. I'm not sure.
Right.
I don't remember.
So this is your example forever. Digital homicide, shitty asset flipper. Let them be known forever.
And Soyattle, you said that I was in denial
go on.
about something?
I think that you are basically not paying attention to the lineage of the arguments that you're engaged with.
Ooh.
In what way?
Well,
you must read Moldbug, son.
Look, just hold on, Soyattle. Just be frank.
Yeah.
Okay. Be
frank.
frank. Don't
I'm
tiptoe.
okay.
thick-skinned.
You are at every turn, every interaction that I have with you, are defending and denying the bad and only focusing on the good of Gamergate. And I had this big, Twitter thread directed at you where you mentioned my collaboration. I said, hey, wait, these are the things you've got to work on. You have to acknowledge there was harassment. You can't stick your fingers in your ears and pretend that it didn't happen, because it did, and it was cringe. And then after Gamergate reformed, we might have had something that moved the needle slightly, but that was mostly in motion, because of the microfinancing laws that passed in 2012. So no, it's blowing up the benefits of Gamergate and minimizing the harms, and it's just not.
Well,
It's
Carl,
not something. Go ahead. Yeah.
I've never said that nobody ever got harassed. I myself received harassment as well, and I know.
Well, but
I've
evidence.
seen some of the receipts. Yeah, actually, I do have evidence. I've got.
Well,
No,
I
no,
didn't know this
I'm
was going to be a
mocking you.
litigation of Tachyon specifically. I don't think it was. I
So
don't think
we
this
don't
is
have to
gonna
go
be
too far into
Yeah,
this.
well,
But
look,
this
I've
is
never said that no harassment happened. I am of the opinion that some of the harassment that people claimed has been exaggerated, or that it didn't quite happen the way that people said, and that's happened on both sides.
Sure,
To be clear, too.
certainly. Okay.
fine.
So,
Fair enough.
well,
Go ahead,
hold on.
Dev. Go ahead, Dev.
Yeah, because there's more to this, because I can actually, even though it didn't see, no offense, Tachyon, it seems like you couldn't get quite into it. I can. All right. So one of the things that I did over the Brianna, you mentioned like an hour ago or something, you mentioned you should engage with ideas that you disagree with, right?
Sure.
Starting in 2020, I went on a massive reading arc. All right. I read some Marx when I was in university. I've read a lot more Marx in the past 4 years than I did back then. Right. I've read a whole bunch of left-wing philosophy, a whole bunch of right-wing philosophy. Philosophy just seems to be my thing right now, and I read way too fucking much of it. But like one thing I've noticed is right-wingers tend to understand left-wing philosophy. Generally, they know like surface level, right? If you talk to like a far right person, he'll tell you who Marx was. He'll tell you the basic idea of what Marx wanted, right? If you talk to a left-winger and ask them to describe right-wing philosophy, they have no fucking clue. They have no fucking idea. All right. A lot of the right
Why would
wing
we read
political.
Hitler? Okay, why?
Oh,
There's guys way further to the right than Hitler, but that's a rabbit hole you don't want to go down. But basically, there's a lot of far right thinkers and writers out there, and they are actually influencing modern politics, because Steve Bannon did read Julius Evola. Steve Bannon did read Mencius Moldbug. These are guys that no one on the left talks about. They just say, oh, they're far right, therefore they're Nazi, therefore they're bad, therefore we don't need to read them. It's like, no, you actually do need to read them. You do need to read, you need to understand these ideas. And I'm saying all this to point out.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm saying all this to point out is that when the right wing is correct on an issue, you should be a right winger on that issue. It's as simple as that, right?
Okay.
And a great example, I think you agree with me on this one, Brianna, because I just did a video on it, was I outlined the competency crisis. This is a right-wing idea, all right? And it explains certain problems that we're having in our society right now better than its left-wing equivalent, because the left-wing equivalent is late-stage capitalism, which is a dogshit way of conceptualizing what's going on. But the competency crisis is a much better framework to describe the problem. So when the right is correct, you should be right, and when the left is correct, you should be left. It should be more about truth, and that just means doing a lot of reading, and understanding where arguments come from.
I couldn't agree more. I think Israel-Palestine is a really great example. And right now, it is primarily the right in the United States that is trying to see some nuance. Wick and I have both taken a lot of lumps for looking at the situation and kind of calling out our own side on some stuff. So I fully agree with that. I think that's well said.
No, I agree as well. Like, I don't like team sports when it comes to this. I am not a Democrat because I don't agree with Democratic policies because I'm a Democrat. I agree with most Democratic policies, but sometimes the right is just right. Like, we can look at the TikTok stuff. I think the right is generally, and thankfully Biden's on board with this too, but the right is generally correct about TikTok and correct about wanting to divest TikTok from being a Chinese-owned company. But that's neither here nor there. I do want to take the chance. Speaking of money and speaking divesting, 𝕵𝖬𝖎𝖙 is single-handedly funding me today, apparently. So I'm gonna read some of his super chats.
Just before you say, I know Artemis loves the super chats.
Yeah.
I have one question to ask Soyattle, and then I'll move on.
Yeah,
That'll be it. Okay, this is it. So, what kind of right-wing philosophy have you read?
Well, okay, so other than James Lindsay that I just mentioned, I'd be hard pressed because I am delving very deeply into like this idea of how to defeat a cultural revolution. He's got a new book about trans stuff in schools and like early transition stuff like that. And this is the challenging stuff. So these are the topics that I find myself uncomfortable with, and from the left I know that as a white dude I'm supposed to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. So I'm delving into these topics specifically.
So
Read
yeah,
some
right
Heinlein. Read some
wingers.
Heinlein.
Oh yeah, Heinlein's good. Yeah, right wingers would call James Lindsay a leftist though.
Oh
Like,
my
he doesn't
goodness.
count.
You didn't know I did my entire high school English thesis on Heinlein. I could tell you anything about anything he's ever written.
Oh, we're gonna
That's
have to geek out later. Okay.
that is the reason I didn't get my AP English credit, because Heinlein is actually kind of a garbage author. But as a it's
Oh.
like the shonen thing where
Do you think
you
think
like the
Friday
action.
is a
Some of
trans
his books are
allegory?
quite good.
Do you think Friday is a trans allegory? Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so
It's
real quick.
It's also male fantasy, but yeah, it's a trans allegory.
Here, pull up a text file, okay? Because no one on the right will ever consider James. Right wingers that I talk to consider James Lindsay a leftist. Okay, so if you want to start with actual right wing philosophy, here's the book you start with: An Open Letter to Open-Minded Progressives. That's the name of the book.
Who's it by?
Mencius Moldbug.
An open letter to
Moldbug,
open-minded progressives. I have
It-
not
it
read
is-
this, so I
It is
would
a
like
14.
to.
Yeah, it's a 14 chapter book that is specifically designed to radicalize your average progressive towards the right wing. And everyone who's very far right that I've ever spoken to said this was the gateway to them reading stuff that's further right wing than Hitler. So reading Evola,
I'm sorry, but
reading
for-
Oswald Spengler, reading all these fucking
Yeah.
crazies. All right.
For me, the gateway of joining the right should have been like organizing with 350 Sierra Club and the people at the Chop and DSA. I mean, like I survived that, so yeah, I will take Moldbug. Like I did like book studies with DSA, Naomi Klein, all this stuff. So
That sounds cancer.
if that did not put me off of the theory of leftism, it will be interesting to see how I react to this.
Nothing makes me want to be more right wing than dealing with leftists online. That if
Oh
anything's
my
gonna be it,
God.
that's gonna
Oh
be
my
it.
God.
Luckily
Oh
I
my
don't
God.
I don't base my my politics based on the annoyance levels of people who are for or against the policy. But trust me, having to deal with some of these people, for lack of a better word, it's the most radicalizing thing. But no, I think
Listen,
it's
it
important.
goes both ways.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
goes
yeah.
both ways because
Yeah.
no, just real quick, because I've had so many people. My audience is more right wing than me by far,
Sure.
and they've said, "Dev, you need to read the Open Letter of Mind Progressive." Like, okay, I'll read it. I read it, and I read it like twice, and I didn't get radicalized by it, and like they all revolted against me for not going down the pipeline. And I was like, I mean, it's interesting. It asks some very interesting questions. He's very clearly an intelligent, educated man, but. No, I'm not going to turn into a fucking neo-reactionary because of this book. Sorry,
just
guys.
reading a
It's not gonna
book
happen.
doesn't mean like that you have to agree with. And I wish more people not to get too off topic here, but I wish more people had that view, because unless you understand what someone is trying to say or argue from, the point that they really actually believe, you're never going to be able to reach them, because every time you talk about the subject, they'll be like, well, that's not actually my position. That's not actually what I think. That's not actually what I believe, right? You won't be able to ever engage with them honestly. So I think we need to be able to, because frankly, I think my ideas are just better and they will survive, right? Now, I don't know if it's healthy to only consume right-wing stuff, and there's problems with the algorithm leading you down directions, either left or right, that tend to echo chamber you. But yes, having a healthy, balanced diet of media and consumption and friends, to be clear, is probably the best way forward. Let me get these super chats because he's paid me like
Sorry
70
about that,
bucks.
Wick.
No,
Go
it's
ahead.
fine. Excuse me. Artemis Fowl for $5. I'm trying to figure out what the problem is with not wanting man haters deciding what I can play by putting themselves between myself and developers. Anyone want to engage with this one?
Can you repeat it?
Sure. I am trying to figure out what the problem is with not wanting man haters deciding what I can play by putting themselves between myself and developers.
I mean, they're not doing it to every developer, right? It's
enough.
pretty much the
Only
truth.
the
Like,
little ones.
well, not exactly. Like here, the thesis of his argument seems to be Sweet Baby is man haters. Sweet Baby is in between developers and the games that you play. It's like, well, even if all that's true, they're not in between every single developer in every single game, right? So like nobody at Sweet Baby worked on a Nintendo game. I can still go play Tears of the Kingdom. It's a great game, and there's nothing Sweet Baby involved in that game at all. All right, they are not the end boss of the internet. These guys.
Do
Well,
you
there
not
could be
understand
others.
how?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, they're exporting like Nintendo for localization. Those aren't always going to be in-house jobs, especially in America. It's going to be more expensive to do it now, and so they're going to outsource. So what
Oh,
happens?
I know that for sure. Yeah, there's another controversy happening now surrounding a company called Dragon Baby. If you heard about this one,
No.
so this is a company that does localization for anime and for Japanese games. And it's the same kind of problem where you have people who are politically partisans working in this company, and rather than just translating the game, they're putting in a bunch of shit that wasn't in the original translation for political purposes. It's the same kind of story happening there too. Now,
just out of curiosity, what's a good example of that, right? Like you say that, but do you have an example in mind to share?
off the top of my head, no. Give me like 30 seconds. I'll find them. I have them in
Sure.
files. Give me a second. I can show
Okay.
it.
Well, as you're
And-
looking for the
and
files.
just to.
Oh no, I was gonna use that time to read the rest of the
Go
$50
ahead,
super
go
chat.
ahead,
Okay.
go ahead.
$50 from Artemis Fowl to say the assumption that you people are having is that somehow the things the right wants, Bannon, etc., are bad and their efforts need to be stopped, when the great many problems that everyone has with industry and institutions has been from progressives. Response.
Well,
I think
that is
said
basically
the
what I said.
opposite. I think I
Oh,
said the opposite very explicitly here.
yeah,
So I don't
my
think
view
it's
was
fair.
definitely like if the right is correct, you should be a right winger. Like I think that my view there answers that. I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on a case by case topic about what issue you're talking about. But the left definitely does have a lot of problems, and the right definitely does as well. They don't believe in democracy currently, like their current front runner. So let's be clear. The right has a lot of major issues.
Fair enough. Okay.
So does the left.
$20 from Artemis Fowl. And gang, remember, you too can also send me money. It doesn't have to be just Artemis Fowl. I do appreciate you, Artemis Fowl. Thank you. I do appreciate it. But
Wick
other
needs
people
his
can
Coke
do
money.
it too.
He
I
needs
do.
his
I
Coke
do.
money.
Artemis Fowl for $20. The reason that progressive boycotts that involve not buying a game personally fail is because progressives do not actually invest in the communities they claim to represent and belong to. It's why they attack others instead.
Progressives do not represent the communities that they
I'm thinking
belong
he's saying
to.
a progressive ban on gaming on a game would fail. Just a straight up boycott would fail because they aren't gamers. That's what he's implying with his tweet.
I don't think that's true. I think that a lot of people just don't feel as strongly about trans dignity as trans people do. That's kind of my take about that. Like they care about it in aggregate, but I think it's just not. I think most people like J.K. Rowling because they wrote her, their favorite book, and that's kind of just the end of thinking with it.
I think there is definitely a market for these kind of progressive, you can call them even woke games. I don't think that market is as big as perhaps some people think it is, but I
Yeah,
think that there
I
definitely
agree.
are niche products. And that's fine being a niche product. There's a lot of games that are niches. In fact, some of the best games out there don't conform to the traditional standards of oh, this is a first person shooter, or this is a platformer, or this is X and Y, but they either mix various different ones, or they take it a different direction, like Resident Evil or Metal Gear Solid. Like those are definitely like niche games. There's nothing wrong with having that. But the progressive market in terms of like woke games, like that, there's definitely a market for it. It's just that it's not everybody in society.
Artemis Fowl for
And
$10.
same goes for Same goes for like Call of Duty. That's not for everybody either. Like different people have different
Yeah.
tastes.
Yeah, Wick, before we do that,
Oh,
can I
please.
make a comment
Yeah,
on that?
please, please.
I mean, I think the thing is the quote unquote woke themes. And by the way, congratulations, right wingers, for coming up with such a brilliant narrative framing device for political ideology. Y'all do a good job. Woke is chef kiss on that. But it can be done really well and it can be done poorly. Look at a game like Cyberpunk, right? Their trans inclusion in there is if you're a female character, you can have the evolutionary penis too, if you want to have that, right? If that's your bag, it really fits into the cyberpunk themes really, really well. I think that is a really, like, one of my really big criticisms, or something that really pulls me out of immersion in games, is nowadays where they just won't say man or woman, right? Like you'll pull it along this slider, like which body type do you want? Body type 1 or body type 2? And I'm like, this is bad UI. Like all of these ideas can be done like well, and they can be done poorly. So I feel like there's this, I do think that there's a reactionary part of the right whose goal, it's not to advocate for the kind of games they want, is to erase what they find very threatening. And I think LGBT representation in games is a really, really good example of that.
Interesting.
I
So
agree.
I want to
Unlock
I
the
wanna t-
sliders.
there are people who out there, and Dev talked about this too earlier. There are people out there who are like, "Oh, the game's got a black person in it. It's woke," right? There are people like that. I think that's like a pretty small portion. I don't think that most of the people who have a problem with like the woke games, even, I don't think that like their issue is like, "Oh, there's a trans character in the game." I think a lot of them really do just want good writing, and they
What is an
also like
example of woke? Can you give me an example?
of what I would consider woke, or like what other
Yeah,
people
you're
would.
talking like it's an epidemic. What? Give me some examples.
Well, I'm not. To be clear, like I'm not saying that it's like an epidemic. Like
Sure,
that's not my position.
sure.
Well, like it could be. I'd have to think about it more. But I guess like, I don't know. I don't play that many new games. I mostly play like retro games. But like, so I can't really name one off the top of my head because like that's not my
Maybe
position.
it's not that
As
big a
that
problem.
there's too many
Yeah.
like woke games.
Yeah. I
Okay,
think it's
so
interesting
hold on.
that Ǩabrūtis. Well, let me get. So Ǩabrūtis also basically said in his various interviews he didn't play half the games on his list.
Okay.
Interesting.
Well, actually, I'll give you a woke
So-
game because I did play this one actually recently. And like it's fine. Like Thirsty Suitors. It's the skateboarding game where it's like a mix of like skateboarding and like JRPG tactic turn-based mechanics. And they like the main character is like a rebel who's just, like also like talks about how she doesn't like the patriarchy and wants to smash it. And it was like an okay game, except it's like too easy. And I think, in my opinion, it's too easy, except for the skateboarding parts, which I guess is what they put their main focus on. And like it really relies on quick time events to a high degree, which is very annoying. But it was actually kind of cool because it was made by someone who's Indian
What
and
was
Sri
woke
Lankan, I
about
believe.
it?
That she's like well, there's like trans, like, so there's optional clothes and stuff you can have, like you can have like a trans character and like trans jacket and like trans shoes and stuff, like your outfit, change that to make it have the trans flag. She also like talks about like smashing the patriarchy, and also
This is where problem, because that's just trans people existing, dude. Like
well, I'm not opposed
that's
to
not.
it. Like, I
But you
played the game all the way through.
characterized it as woke. Like this is just trying to erase trans people.
But like I'm
from
saying, many
existing
people would call it
media.
would woke. Like I don't like use the
Well,
term woke.
hold on,
and
no,
that's
hold on.
That's horseshit.
Because you were asked, Tachyon, like, what is a game you consider? Like, I don't care about anyone
Yeah,
else.
I don't know because I
You.
don't like use the term like woke on a regular
Okay,
basis to
fair
like
enough.
describe games. Like, oh, that's woke. I would use like progressive, and like it's a very progressive game.
So I will say, like Disco Elysium, incredibly progressive game, very good. Go
Yeah.
Would
play
it be woke?
Good game.
Is a question.
Woke? No, I don't think it's woke. no.
Okay. And if you have if my chat has comments, if you want to chat some examples that you want to bring up as woke, I'm very curious. Let me get through these last two super chats. I promise.
Well, hold on. You asked me to do this, Wick, so I digged it up for you. Okay, I dug it all up.
Got you.
Digged.
Okay.
I dug it up.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so in terms of the translation, it's a different topic, but it's like a related topic where you have translators that are translating things and adding stuff into it.
Sure.
Okay, so one big example everyone talks about is Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, which is a scene. I mean, we're not going to go
One
over
of the
clips
super
of these
chats is that,
things.
but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not going to be clips because I'm not going to play videos in this because
Yeah, yeah,
this,
yeah.
this is the end of the stream. But just real quick, there's a character with really big boobs named 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 in the original translation of the anime. She says that she put on like a shirt because her boobs were sticking out and she wasn't comfortable with that. And then in the English dub, she talks about the patriarchy instead. And it's like, well, that you shoehorn something in there, I think. All right. In the anime Prison School, there was a scene in Prison School. This was way back in 2015. So this was like 1 year after Gamergate. So, but basically, a woman in this anime insults a guy by calling him a dumbass Gamergate creep show, which was not in the original translation whatsoever because no one in Japan gave a fuck about Gamergate. Um, I
But that
know.
sounds like a localization issue. Like,
Yeah,
I
no,
know
Yeah,
it
there's
is.
a lot of
It
the
is. Yes.
reason
localization
for this,
problems.
but Gamergate is a shorthand, like culturally, for a certain kind of gamer. And
Only
But
to people like you, Brianna.
only to certain people though, and it's not a
I don't know
widespread
if I
preference.
agree with that. I think most people want to say, yeah, like they know Gamergate. I experience that a
I don't.
lot.
I don't
I
think so.
don't. I
I
don't
think
think
most
so.
normies don't
No.
care. No, I think it's still just like an online thing primarily. That's right. This is one that was very recent, just like less than a month ago. Um, the dub writer for the anime Lovely Complex came out on Twitter with a whole bunch of nonsense about hating men and hating white people and patriarchy again. And this person actually ended up losing their job because
Oh,
they went way too fucking far on Twitter. So it got to the point where the original creators of the manga of Lovely Complex saw this and it's like, listen, you can't have this person working on the dub of this fucking anime. This is ridiculous. Um, a video game example, you probably know it, Brianna. Uh, there's been a translation change in Persona 4
oh, I saw that. Yeah.
to make Naota a trans man when she was just a tomboy. It's like
Hmm.
it doesn't this is not a trans character, this is a tomboy character. And the last example that I pulled up real quick, I only get 5 of them in short notice.
Please, please.
There was a manga called I Think I Turned My Childhood Friend Into a Girl. It's a joke title. It's not about being trans at all. It's about being a crossdresser. It was localized as someone being trans, and in fact, there was a lot of pushback for this one. And they basically said you're all being transphobic because you're complaining about this. But this is about 2 boys falling in love. One of them's girly and crossdresses,
Oh.
and experiments with the crossdressing with his childhood best friend, but they made it into a transitioning story, and people who read that did not like it. So
So
those are 5 examples I can pull up just off the top of my
would
head,
you
or off
also
top of my files. Yeah,
criticize the original Sailor Moon when they turned like 𝕻𝖎 like it was a gay love story, and they turned 𝕻𝖎 from season 1 of Sailor Moon into a girl, so who was
yes,
making out with
absolutely, yes,
Malachi?
yep.
Yeah, I mean these things are sometimes done like for localization and sensitivity. I think it's hard to really know, but I think you've got some examples. They're very fair.
Yeah. And to piggyback on that, I think Fire Emblem Fates 2 was one of the ones that got me really motivated with Gamergate, with the torrential downpour stuff especially, where I don't remember all the details that they've changed now, but I do remember that they took out the petting minigame where you could pet your romantic partners, and they also changed tons of dialogue where they just took it out and just replaced it with dots. And this was done
Remember
because they
that?
thought it might
Yeah.
be offensive, yeah. But I don't remember the
Oh my
original
fucking god.
dialogue now that which I taken out. I do remember
It's
the
been a
petting
while, but I
minigame
remember
though.
this. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Basically,
Dots.
there seems to be a controversy that's been brewing now for almost as long as Gamergate, where basically the quality of localizations from stuff coming from Japan over to English has been steadily decreasing, and there seems to be politics seems to play some part in that because because as the quality goes down, there's also shoehorning in messages that weren't there before. That's
Oh,
basically
oh.
the story. Yeah.
No, I think that's almost worthy of its own discussion, the localization issue, because I think there is enough there, at least in the short time that you were able to give me a few examples, that it does bear looking into. I'll look into that more. Let me get through these other super chats, and I know we can't go as long as we did last time, gang. That was a lot.
It was
So
5 hours this time. Yeah, we
yeah,
can't go that long. No.
we'll try to kind of
Only
wrap
four and a
this up.
half hours.
Oh yeah,
Only
yeah.
4.5.
Hey, I'm
Um,
game.
but let me get through these super chats just so I can get the money. $10 from Artemis Fowl to say Dragon Maid removed a joke about the maid about the female dragon's body being too lewd, and the localizers removed it and put in patriarchal values in the line. Dev just gave that same example. Thank you.
Mhm.
$5 from Artemis Fowl. The term woke was invented by the left. The right just used it the same way social justice warrior was co-opted into a derogatory manner. Thank you for the $5. I guess to close us out, a final question, if you will. What's your favorite game of the last year? Something simple, something light.
Tears of the Kingdom, easy. Though 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 is a close second.
𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙. It was okay. It was
I think it was
Souls-like,
very
but it
good.
was kind of like
It was
generic.
really good.
I liked it a lot. I actually really liked it.
Fair enough.
Can I give one that hasn't come out this year, but I played this year?
Eh,
I don't know about that.
No, that doesn't count.
No.
It's the last
No.
year. So
Fake
2023
gamer
and
boy.
2024,
Fake
right?
gamer boy.
Yeah.
Ah, see, I'm a fake gamer. I don't play that many new games.
Mm. Okay, what do you got,
So
Soyattle?
it's like Ace Combat 5,
I
though.
Okay.
I really enjoyed City Skylines 2. I jumped on that bandwagon. I mean, before then, and this one I really want to shout out. I really liked Hard Space Shipbreaker, but that was a year before. I played so much of that. That is like, if you are like very spatially oriented and want to do outer space, hard sci-fi and all that, play Hard Space Shipbreaker. It is fantastic.
Okay, Brianna, what you got?
Yeah, it's a good game. Yeah.
Wolong all the way. Wolong. It's basically so Neo is amazing. Neo 2 is amazing. Strangers of Paradise. I don't care if y'all thought it was cheesy. His like, I'm going to kill chaos thing. I don't care. That game was
ridiculous,
great.
dude.
Oh, but it was such a good game. It was such a good game. And then Wolong comes out, which has the most like crazy stereotypical Chinese characters you've ever imagined in your whole life, and that amazing combat engine. Oh my god, it is so good. I platinumed that game. I put probably 400 hours into it, and I cannot wait for Ronin to come out. So by far my favorite game.
I very rarely put like several hundred. Like I very rarely play a game for I don't have time anymore to play to like really go crazy in games. But like the number of games that I've put more than 100 hours into, I can count on like one hand. And it's like Zelda Breath of the Wild, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Hollow Knight. Not that many. There's not that many games that really just hook me in and just captivate me for 4 months straight. I know. And you know what? The main reason I've been avoiding getting too deep into Baldur's Gate 3 is because I know it's going to be that for me as well.
Same.
Oh,
It's going to be too much.
Nice.
Being honest, that or Rogue Trader were my favorite games, but I love the CRPG thing. So one of those two, depends on my mood which one I'll choose. But I want to highlight a game I played recently that's more indie, right? Much less well known, but I have had a blast with. I really like this genre. Maybe it's just a niche thing for me. Maybe you guys never heard of it. 𝕾𝖍𝖏𝖙. It's a auto battler. It's set up really well in a kind of competitive kind of what's a League of Legends tactics game?
A MOBA.
Yeah, kind of
Mhm.
not really a MOBA, but you have rounds where you buy your little units and you put them out and they go and they fight. Tactics, the tactics game.
Sounds almost like a tower defense game.
Kind of, but it's more complex than that, and it's competitive. So you would put they fight. So if you guys want to check out that, that's fine.
I just bought
gang.
it. I just bought it.
Oh, I do want to shout out actually an indie game too. It's 2022, like Soyattle's, but Signalis is.
Yeah,
I've not finished it yet,
Signalis
but
is
it's
really good.
incredible. I love it. If you
Okay.
like Resident Evil games and the original Resident Evil games, like old school survival horror, you're gonna love this.
Okay, the chat's yelling at me is auto chess or teamfight tactics. Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I was having a brain fart there. Gang, I want to give everyone here a chance to shout themselves out, tell us what they got going on, where they can find them, and have closing thoughts on this. I will have, and you can go if you'd like, but I will have call-ins for about 20 minutes on this, or 30 minutes if people want to call in. You guys can.
I feel bad. I can't stay for the call-ins this time. I'm
fine.
sorry.
That's fine.
Sorry about that.
But yeah, we'll go into closing statements, and then we'll see what we got from there. Let's start with Dev. Give us your closing thoughts, please. We'll go in the reverse
Thank you,
order.
because I had to go at 8, so I'm gonna get right through it. Thanks for being here, everyone. I always like talking to you, Brianna. It was nice
I
meeting
feel
you,
the same way.
Soyattle and Tachyon.
Likewise.
Yep.
I know we don't agree much, Soyattle. I've seen you around a bit, and I know that we don't agree much. But it was still nice talking to you nonetheless. It's good that it wasn't a hostile conversation, because I've spoken to some bread tubers and it's been very hostile before, and it's like, well, all right, dude, okay. As for what I'm doing next, I'm probably gonna talk about Akira Toriyama next on my channel. Um, I do want to cover probably sometime this week the whole like the transing of tomboys, that discussion, because that's gone. It's very strange because you'll see on the right wing, you'll see this a lot. You'll see they're turning all of our tomboys into trans men. They're taking away the tomboy GFs from us, and there's probably like a hint of truth to that. But I've also now seen a similar thing happening from the other way around, where you have like right wingers going after women that are too masculine. And it's like, don't you want a trad wife? And it's like, hold on, you can't hold both of these positions at the same time. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna do something with this, I think, but that'll probably be near the end of the week. So that's what I've
Where
got
do you
coming up on
fall
my
on
channel.
trans Christian trad wives, Dev?
They're based 100%.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
yeah. I'm a big fan.
That is like 100% where I'm at right now.
Okay.
You want a trans Christian trad wife?
No, I have a Catholic trans girlfriend.
Oh, you do?
Okay.
Damn.
Is there anything else you wanted to say, Deb, before we move on? I know you
That's it.
gotta go.
That's what I've got coming down the pipe. So thanks for having me, Wick.
Always
And
pleasure.
I'll talk to you guys all three another time. I'll see you later, okay?
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
See ya.
Bye.
See you in the
Okay.
DMs.
And in the interest of reverse orders, I think next up was, if I'm remembering correctly, Tachyon Blue. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I'm 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙. I'm currently working on a book about Gamergate, a second book. This time, a book of interviews. It's going to be released in multiple volumes, most likely. That's the current plan. But I do many of these interviews are public. 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 on YouTube, and I'm currently in the process of finishing up the last few interviews, most likely, unless there's like some last minute additions. And then I'm going to be cutting these. I've already started this process, cutting these into segments for videos for you guys publicly, for everyone who's interested in that. But then I'm also, as I do the transcription of that video to text for the book, that's when I upload the video. So it's sort of holding me accountable and making sure that I get through them and also create content for you in the meantime. So check me out if you want.
Go check him out, gang. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your
Oh,
contribution.
can I ask Brianna one thing?
Well, let's get to the closing statements.
No, it's a nice question, I swear.
Okay, well, let's get to the closing statements, and then we'll get to call-ins, and you can, yeah. Soyattle, please.
Hey, I am a lazy fail son, ex-gamer, barely qualify as a content creator. I have one podcast every Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, called the Eco-Modernist Channel Live. I talk about environment, futurist, urbanism, nuclear energy, modern medicine, all the most boring content in the world. But if you care about that stuff, here I am, Eco-Modernist Channel, or Eco-Modernist 1 on YouTube. Soyattle.tv, twitch.tv/Soyattle. That's me.
Well, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Check him out, gang. Last but certainly not least, Brianna Wu.
So, y'all know who I am. You know where to find me. I want to leave with some words of wisdom. I have probably gotten, I could not count how many Gamergaters have written me over the years, and they are embarrassed by their teenage selves and their participation in the movement. Very often, they're people that sent me death threats, rape threats, all that kind of stuff, and they're embarrassed about it. On the other side, a lot of the game developers that fought on the other side of this, they don't think it was worth it. Any of the death threats, harassment, or any of that stuff. So as the potential for Gamergate 2 kicks off, my strongest recommendation for everyone involved, don't get involved, don't deal with this, don't sacrifice your sanity standing up for any of this. It's not worth it. It's going to seem like you're fighting for something really important at the time. But if you're not talking about policy, you're not making change. The really big lesson I took from Gamergate is you cannot win a culture war but you can win a policy. So no matter if you're on the right or the left of this issue, find a policy you care about and go try to get that enacted instead. That will be a better use of your time. Thank you, Wick.
Oh, thank you. Is there anything you're doing that you want to draw people's attention to? They can find you.
I can't talk about my new job yet, but there's Counterfire. You can watch my show with Connor. It is amazing. If you like watching the right and the left argue about things, you will love our show.
I enjoyed your last episode. Gang,
Thank
check
you.
it out. It was really great. All these people are great. All these people are good. We're only going to take the people currently backstage for callers. That's what I'm going to call it because I have things to do tonight. Last word from me on this. We need to be careful when we are dealing with these subjects that we are talking about the issue that the other side is actually trying to convey. There are too many people I see on all sides of this issue who are getting it wrong. No, the major criticisms of Sweet Baby Inc. are not racist. No, game developers don't just hate you. There are some real issues with harassment in that space too, right? And we are talking past each other. We need to stop. Thanks for, if you guys enjoyed this content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Tomorrow we're going to have Hutch on. We're going to have Josiah from Pondering Politics on. We're going to have Rob Noor on. We're going to have Admiral Gibbs. We're going to have Rashad Crenshaw, and we're going to have Lauren De Laguna.
Wow.
It's going to be a great show.
Wow.
Has Trump been good for the Republican Party? Has it been a positive or a
Wick.
negative? It's going to be a great show. Check it
How
out.
are you going to moderate that, buddy?
I am going to hold on
a
for
lot.
goddamn life, okay? We're going to try. We're going to just, we just go through. Anyway.
Amazing. I'm going to bounce, y'all. I'll talk to you later.
I'll see you guys. I'll see you later. Okay. Let's bring on our first guest. Hey, what you got? You're live.
Hold on, me?
Yeah, that's you, buddy. What do you got for us?
Hold on, let me just set things up. Sorry about that. So, I did actually had a question on the Twitch chat here, and just to let you know, debate was great, lovely. But here's actually a question because about the how to actually make the whole game development great once more. I don't think it's the fault of just feminist circles and all that. I think my problem is that should all the political activists from both sides of political spectrum should stay out and stop hijacking game development teams to promote their own personal ideology, because it's not because I don't. Here's the thing: I don't mind having black person in a game or trans person in a game or pronouns in a game. The question is this going according to the wishes of the creator of the specific game or the story writer?
First of all, Brittany Simon, welcome. Thanks for the raid on YouTube. Really appreciate you. Gang, you just missed the main segment. We're just doing call-ins right now. But hey, the video's up. You can go check it out. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Does anyone want to take this gentleman's question?
I don't have a problem with that. Is if you're sort of aligning this with the intent of the creator, I think you're absolutely right. And if that's sort of your perspective, then even the games that Tachyon or Dev consider woke and over the top, those are just fine because that creator had a very specific intent and they delivered on it. Really, the only problem you have is with the giant corporations who are kind of cutting and dividing up their player base and looking for that perfect mix of people, of representations that will get them the most money. And that's pretty cringy, isn't it?
It's not just cringy. I think it's you're taking advantage of one group, one niche group just to make money. I don't think that's a good idea.
It's tokenism. Yeah,
it's tokenism. It's not a good idea. You're just making money purposely. You don't care about this specific group. Because if you did, you will do something else. You might create something better that will help that group feel better, much more welcoming. But it's not just one of those things that actually terrified me was the whole localization thing. I hope I spelled this right. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous now.
Don't
Is
be
that
nervous, man. It's okay.
okay? So where the whole there's that one voice actor who actually confirmed that she actually made those changes for the translation to like fit so kind of a political thing. That actually terrified me because that was never a part of the like original thing what that character said here, and it's completely against the creator's wishes on how it's supposed to look like,
Yes.
and it
So
just completely terrifies me that someone is actually using that job as a translator.
if that scares you, let me give you something that'll really keep you up at night, because this is something we talked about months ago on my channel. It was a big kerfuffle in the news for like a week, and then it died down, but it's still happening. It's still a problem. It's still really, really bad. Did you know that the publishers for Goosebumps went through and changed, again, without informing or asking the author's permission, R.L. Stine, to be clear, went through and changed a bunch of the language within the books to be more progressive, to be more woke. Did you know that happened? That happened.
Not. Yeah, okay. I mean,
That
I'm not familiar with Goosebumps. Who are they?
it's a
It's a
childhood
children's book.
series,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So they would make changes, like instead of insults being fat and things like that, they would make other changes. There was the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Do you guys remember that author? His estate, right? They had a similar kerfuffle where they went through and made tons of changes to the content of a dead man's book, right? In order to wokeify it. Now, it was with permission of the people who had ownership up at the time, but there is a problem of when a new reader reads this work, they will think that it is the words that they are reading were the original authors when they simply were not. And that is a problem. Now, when we talk about localization, that's also an issue here where, again, your fear, I think, is founded, where as you go through, you assume that that was originally what was meant to be said, but it turns out it wasn't at all. And that is a problem that we have to deal with. Thank you for being here. Thanks for coming. We got a little bit of line, and I do have to speed things along.
That's understandable. Thank
really
you so much
appreciate
for answering my
Mhm.
question. I love the conversation so much. Thank you.
Okay. See you later. Okay, next caller. Hello, you're live. Hello.
What? Oh, it's Mandalorian.
Mandalorian, you are muted on your end.
Mando.
Go ahead. Now's your time to shine, buddy. Uh-oh.
Hey.
Uh-oh. Okay, you know what? We're going to try him later. We're going to bring on Smith first, I guess.
Mando's fun.
I like Mando too. It's just he wasn't here.
Yep.
Smith, you're live.
Hello.
Hi, what you got for us?
Okay, so this has been like the most infuriating topic that's come up like lately for me. I watched 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙's presentation. Almost the entire speech, it has literally no substance and is all double speak, and she's not saying it much at all. From what she said, it really horrifies me how opaque it is and deceptive it is of what she's trying to sell to you. All she's trying to sell is very simple: changing colors of characters, just risk management, trying to eliminate risk. And she's trying to sell it as this progressive, trying to promote like positivity or like do something good for minorities or something. And that's really not the case whatsoever. If you were actually to make minorities feel seen, it would create risk. But that goes against the mission statement of the company utterly, entirely. And the fact that it's branded as something that would like do that is making everybody stupid and destroys our ability to actually like have this progress in the artwork. It's anti-art, it's anti-thought, and it's anti-progress. Not only that, but it also creates risk in the way that like it creates risk because they're like in her pitch in that speech, she was talking about how you have to go to your employer and you have to threaten them and terrorize them, and because if they don't hire these people, then then your product is there's going to be like bad shit in store for your product. People won't buy it, and so basically they're creating their own risk just to self-justify their own product.
I believe that Tachyon used the term racketeering or protection racket.
Yeah.
Protection racket. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Do you have a thought on this you'd like to share? And then we'll go to Soyattle.
I'll let Soyattle answer first if he wants to.
No, well, I'm going to be a little disruptive, so go ahead, Tacky.
Okay, all right. So I will say this. I don't like this kind of language. I don't like Anita Sarkeesian saying that. I think that when she said that in 2019 about CD Projekt Red, that was 1,000% protection rackety. This second case with Kim Belair's GDC speech, she did say, I say that a lot as a joke. So, like, technically, I don't know how you want to think about that. It didn't seem super jokey. It seemed like she probably shouldn't have said that. I don't know if she meant it or not, or if it was a joke. But like, probably don't use that kind of language moving forward.
I know. I think that's baked into the concept of what it is altogether. The risk management that exists, the point of the risk management that she's talking about is the risk of being slandered and called racist, which is what they want you to think is going to happen. And they want to push people to think that. Like, so the brand in itself, the organization in itself wants people to get pissed off about really stupid things and call you racist for not having utterly superficial, non-progressive bullshit in your game that doesn't actually make people feel seen or push any positive understanding forward socially. It's like, and it's a culture war embodied in a corporate and this isn't just gaming. This is all corporate environments have this now.
All right. Well, I kind of doubt that you watched the same video I did. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe you didn't watch the source. So I'm going to send that to you in DMs because it sounds like you're watching a reaction to this video rather than the source material. As a
Let me see
game dev,
if
I kind of went, I kind of went through this, hearing her talk about situations where
I watched this video, motherfucker. Fuck you.
Well, hold on.
Then
what
do you say when? Why are you contradicting the contents of the fucking video?
Because
like, how short is your attention span?
Okay,
how are you contradicting it? You're saying that she was forcing this on people when she actually said, hey, look, these people gave me a script to read that was about a black character, and I found some things that didn't quite ring true, so I corrected them. And then there are other cases where, like, yeah, we want to mix it up a little bit. We want to mix it up. No, okay, so you, like, want to, like, clip a tiny bit out of this video and think the whole thing was pushing a narrative instead of, like, this is actually what a sensitivity reading is. This is actually what,
Carl,
I get hired to do.
I like you, man, but dude, you're a bit unhinged right now, dude.
Which part of the video do you want me to ignore?
I'm being soy. Come on, this is soy.
Which part of the video, which part of everything she said do you want me to ignore, and which part do you want me to focus on? Because if we can focus on some other random bullshit that has nothing to do with what I said, but I was referring to a specific segment where she talked about and encouraged towards the end for quite a bit of the speech, encouraging people to literally go terrorize their employers, make sure that they're afraid. I don't care if I'm fucking soy. I'm saying what I think.
Great, then we're on the same page. I'll be soy. It's great. We'll all be soy. Okay. I think that was a little cringe.
You're just dismissing me for no reason. You're telling me I didn't watch
I'm not dismissing you.
You're being dismissive because you don't have anything to say.
No,
why are you dismissing me?
I've got plenty to say.
Well, you have a lot to say just to shut me up, but you don't have a lot to say on your own.
I gave you all the room in the world. I mean, like, you could have had a great interaction with Tachyon about this.
Let me try to okay, because you guys just went 0 to 100. And I'm let's take this step by step. Let's take this step by step. So, we hear you, Math. Soyattle, what are you contending that Smith said that was incorrect? What did he get wrong in his initial statement? And why is it?
Well, sort of the characterization that Sweet Baby Inc. is like their job is entirely forcing companies to go with this narrative. And she did point out one case where she felt the need to advocate for inclusion, to advocate for sensitivity work. It doesn't necessarily mean that she's demanding every company insert woke agendas in all of their games.
Can I
Maybe
read
you
the
can
full
interpret
quote?
that way. And I think
am getting brain
that
damage.
that is a bit soy and a bit conspiratorial, because the
Oh my
industry
fucking
does
God.
not function this way. No, it
Yeah,
does not
because that's why
function
I
this
wouldn't
way.
fucking say
Like-
that, because it doesn't function that way. The point of her job isn't for her to boss people around. They're trying to mitigate risk. They hire her, and they don't have to do anything that she says. They hire her
Right.
because they're afraid of a risk, and so she will push this shit. And she's also pushing the fear of the risk. The risk is bullshit. You're appealing to minorities is actually a risk. To try to
But
promote...
you said it was superficial. You said it was
Yes.
superficial.
So that's why, yes. So the actual like positive thing would be risk. That's why the only thing that she is in the power to do, which falls in line with what she is hired to do, is superficial.
So let's
Okay.
talk about her what she said in
Yeah,
that
can you read the
speech.
quote?
So
Can
we
you
all
just
have-
read the
okay, I
quote
have
for
it,
us,
all right.
please? Yeah.
If you're a creator working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff to your higher ups. And if they don't see value in what you're asking for, when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want. Because they have to consider, and then she pauses and she says, I say that a lot as a joke. Because if you start to consider the people who are player and audience facing and who have to deal with mitigating harm and keeping sentiment around the game positive, there is a genuine value you can impress upon them both ethically and financially. You can say this is important. That's the direct quote about that. The full quote.
Thoughts?
Well, there's some slight context before, but
Sure.
Pretty cringe. Pretty cringe to sort of use this as like, oh, you know, this not just that, okay, we're headed in this direction. We have like a mandate from the story writers to include people of diverse cultures. And so if you ignore it and you let it be superficial, this is how I read it. If you let it be superficial, you're going to cause a problem. You're going to incur a risk. Smeth sees it differently. Smeth sees that, well, if you don't include these people, you're going to incur a risk. And I simply don't think that it happens often in that direction. I think that it is. And if you look at some of the literature out there, like Destructoid's article on Alan Wake 2 Saga and Sweet Baby Inc.'s contributions there, they talk about, okay, we want to have a companion character, different, diverse, because we chose to do that. The game creator chose to do that, and Sweet Baby Inc. was engaged in fleshing out that character so that she would seem more real and not such a paper-thin token representation.
It's not about making them more real whatsoever. It's about making them non-offensive, and that's completely different from making them more real. If you wanted to make a character that as like a minority or someone who is marginalized, make them more real, it's going to be offensive because people are complicated and shitty. So if you want to have a fleshed out dynamic character, you can't do it by the mission statement of that company or of that type of company, what they are hired for. It's literally impossible. You cannot reduce risk by what she's claiming is a transgressive thing. And the sales pitch is that if you are not this faux trend, because it's so much doublespeak going on here. Like, for instance, her saying, oh, I say this as a joke all the time, after saying, like, in the middle of saying it, after like so many shit she said, she did that, just like doesn't undo anything you just said. There's so much doublespeak. It's not transgressive, but she's framing it as a transgressive thing, and she's saying that you have to be transgressive in order to mitigate risk, which is also doublespeak. It's not true. To be transgressive creates a shit ton of risk. So it's just a complete soup. The only thing that she can do, and she like had this whole thing about creating joy. So it's just appeasing. What that means, the only thing that can mean is trying to appeal to people's narcissism. Like, oh, I'm special because I'm black. I'm special because I'm whatever the fuck. And that's not actually making people feel seen. It's completely superficial.
I wonder if you got to the picky baby line. What did you think about that?
Yeah, she had a whole long list of so anybody that because so it's baked in that to her presentation, a big fucking chunk of it, that criticism of her proves her right because I'm a stupid, stinky white man, picky baby. And that your consumers of the product are people that you should ignore. That in itself is like should be a red flag if you actually are like intelligent and you are concerned about mitigating risk.
I
So
actually agree with
if
Smith here. So like, can I
go ahead,
just because
it's
this
fine.
is something that could have came up in the panel too. Because like they shouldn't be attacking their customer base, and like I get it that she personally doesn't want to make games for like white people, I guess, or whatever, however she wants to frame it. But like being like, oh, if they don't like it, they're just picky babies and just insulting people. That's not a good way
Awesome.
I
to build
love.
the gaming
Awesome.
I will
industry.
say
To build a
this.
more
I will
to
say
build a
this.
more actually inclusive and diverse games
I will
industry.
say this.
This is great. This
I
is great.
For
love.
everybody, including makes a variety of different games.
I love insulting my audience personally. I think it's based.
Well,
I think it's fun.
and
I like to make sure that the audience knows its place, that it can't control me, and so I love to call them all retarded babies. But I don't do it because of their race or anything. I do it because they're retarded babies. But I actually wanted to stick up for developers or because this is a larger problem. This is a little off topic, but it's my show and I want to talk about it. The issue today with so much are fan bases. Fan bases are entitled. They think that they have control of the IP, of the story, of the game. This is evident in a lot of fan fiction, too, where people will make the most unhinged fan fiction of characters that are not their own, of worlds that are not their own, but that they feel a connection to because they consumed that product when they were children, or they consumed that product during a time of their life, right? And they think that they have this control over the product that they ultimately don't. The only control that they can have is whether or not they consume that product or not. And I think that a lot of the reasons we're having such bad games and such bad movies and such bad TV shows is because fanatics, fans, have gotten control of the process in a way they have never had before because of the internet. And they have led us down this thing where the only thing we're getting is Iron Man number 576 because that's all they want. Now, that's not the only problem. Obviously, I have really big problems with the way Sweet Baby Inc. has engaged in this and the way that the corporations have engaged in this as well. It's a two-tiered thing, and both are making us shitty games. Last word, Smith, then we gotta get the last person. So.
What you just said is absolutely true. Like you can refer that in a broad way as audience capture, and 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 is 100% completely within that camp. The type of influence that she is pushing on them, the mitigation of risk, is literally the risk of the audience and the public turning against you because they don't like what you're doing. It goes against having a vision that is transgressive or promotes any positivity. Someone in your chat said it's not about not offending anybody; it's about leading and supporting. Wrong. Because core to the mission of the company and this type of company, this type of consulting, you don't hire them to do whatever you want. You hire them to tell you when, like she said, and she's like she says it like as if she's frustrated that that's her job. Oh, I hate it that people have to hire me to tell them when they're being racist. Her job is to tell you in sensitivity reading, risk analysis, risk assessment. She's supposed to tell you how risky that what you're doing is and try to help you write something that is not risky. If you want to be diverse, you're like, oh, well, you have to do it in a way that's not risky. It's not about pushing to like some positive connective thing where people learn and connect with each other in this artistic thing. Not whatever. Not whatsoever at all.
Okay.
It's impossible.
I'll agree with you. We need more Boondocks characters in our media. We need more Boondocks in it.
We got to get to the
Go
next
ahead.
caller. We got to get to the next
It was
caller.
Toby1 Kenobi. Okay, bye.
Okay,
That's
I
just
love
it.
you, Smith. Bye. Okay.
Wick,
so-
do you think it'd be worth talking about the fans being the problem though? Because
And
I
another,
don't know how late you want to go, but
in another
Picky
segment, yes,
babies.
but I do have to go. But they're not the only problem, and it's not all fans, but there are fans who they gatekeep, or not gatekeep isn't the word, but they are a ball and chain on innovation because all they want to see is the same thing they've always seen, right? They don't want change. They don't want something different. They want to consume the same nostalgia market, right? It's a real problem. But that's beside
But
the
Wick,
point.
if you give them something different, you are literally getting rid of white men. You like every character could be a white man, and if you allow any diversity at all, you're getting rid of white men.
No. Hold on.
Okay, the battle of the helmets. Okay, go ahead, Mando. You're here now. You're the last caller of the night. What do you got for us?
What up, Wick? You beautiful bitch. I love you. Thank you for stealing my thunder. I was going to defend the devs and point out the fact that in many of these studios, the developers aren't making these decisions. They're just doing what they're being paid to do, right? They don't have a choice on what games they develop. Someone just tells them what to develop. That would be number one. So let's take it easy on the devs and actually focus on the problem. Most gamers, generally speaking, don't like inclusivity is not a big deal. We don't want to take trans people out of video games. We don't want to take black people out of video games. Right? That's not the issue. The issue is that what seems like inclusivity, what seems like equality, and what seems like diversity is not genuine. It's being inserted by people who are paid actors that are only including these aspects into video games or entertainment in general for the sole purpose of being compensated monetarily. It's all about the money. That's the issue. People can tell that it's not genuine. People can tell that it's not organic. And now we know why it's not organic. Because certain studios and certain production companies are getting paid to include diversity and equality and inclusivity when they don't actually hold those ideologies, so it feels unauthentic, if that makes sense.
Who's paying? I gotta know.
We know who's paying, right? We know it's
BlackRock, it's BlackRock, it's Vanguard. Those are like $2 trillion companies that pay other production companies a specific sum, and you get paid more the more you include certain diversity and equality. You know, that's why you can. It's why you can tell when like certain things that are involved in like representation, et cetera, aren't authentic at all.
Wick, if I can have the share screen bit back, I would love to share some of the evidence that that Tachyon and I have brought up when it comes to ESG and this conspiracy theory that BlackRock and Vanguard, which are actually just mutual fund managers, have a say in the content. So I have this chart from.
No, I didn't say that they have a say in the content that's being made. I'm saying that
then what's your accusation?
What I said, I'm pretty sure I just stated it. My accusation is that production companies and creative companies like writers, et cetera, studios across entertainment are being monetarily compensated for including inclusivity, equality, and diversity.
Who is compensating them?
I just told you.
No.
The same company that
you told me who's getting paid. Who is paying? Oh, okay. So you are saying like BlackRock, Vanguard, and how are they making that determination?
What do you mean? How are they making that determination based on how much inclusivity, et cetera, is in the product? Hello.
And that is that the ESG score? Is that something else?
Yes. From what I understand,
that is the ESG score. Okay. Yeah. So this is what I want to share: is the Morningstar Sustainalytics white paper, and I still can't share.
Try now.
Okay.
Quickly.
Yes, I will.
Because I'm saying quickly in general because I'm hungry. And I'd like to.
There we go. So these are the categories of risk. Sorry, not categories of risk. These are the ratings by sector. And I do not see entertainment on here, for one. So it doesn't seem that ESG actually matters in entertainment. It's these high risk categories: energy, consumer staples, healthcare, financials, real estate. These are the categories where ESG is actually having an impact in whether or not you should invest. There's other, this other one is this is from a different, this is from a bank's ESG overview, and this is just a list of categories. And so, yes, there is social impact of product and human rights on there. And so those are the only two like possible categories under which representation might fall, but it seems a stretch on either of those. This seems like, like, are your iPhones being made by slave labor, or are your products being used to literally kill people? That's what the ESG scoring is all about. It doesn't. I have no evidence anywhere that actually points to this. I know that some companies like Blizzard, 𝕾𝖍𝖙's great report from Blizzard, where they brag about being diverse and inclusive, but this is the Sustainalytics company. This is the people who actually write the ESG policies for those major institutions, and I don't see the evidence for it.
Okay,
Okay,
thanks
that's
for
fair.
sharing that. Okay.
Fair.
Yeah, I don't
I
know
would-
enough
I would-
about
hold
it
up.
to really say how prevalent of an issue that is. I've talked with game developers, anonymously, I'm not going to say who, and some of them
Okay.
say that they think ESG plays a role. Some of them think that it's because that the woke people it's better to just pay them off basically, and so that way they don't attack your game
Yeah.
and just not deal with the criticism. So I've heard both answers.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would also like to point out that
last thought. Yeah.
if you can't, like, good writing is good writing, right? You should be able to identify and relate with a character regardless of sex, gender, race, etc., right? Like, I'm growing up, I read a lot of books. I'm literally the kid from Neverending Story. I'm Bastion. So how I consume content might be different than other people's. I can acknowledge that, right? Like, but like, when you read something and it seems like it's unauthentic or it's unorganic, it just takes you out of the immersion, right? Like, good writing a good character isn't dependent on whether the character is male or female, or whether it's black, like whether he's black like me, whether or not he was in the army. Sure, there are some aspects that make the character more relatable, or make it easier for the reader or the viewer to relate to that character. But if the character writing is good, then none of those things really matter. Good writing is good writing, bad writing is bad writing.
Well,
Exclusivity has nothing to do with bad writing.
noted. Gang.
All right. Thank you, Wick.
No, thank you. Gang, it's been fun. 𝕾𝖍𝖙 on Soyattle. I'll see you later. I'm going to move you out. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Wick.
See ya.
Okay. Wasn't that fun? Wasn't that a nice, relaxed conversation? I will say this. I would have loved it. And this is frustrating to me, because I want to have these conversations with a wide variety of views, right? As big of a variety of views as I can get. I want all sides that are involved in this represented. I would have loved it if we could have had some of the writers of these articles, such as the Kotaku article or the Guardian article or Aftermath article, several of these. I would have loved if they would have been willing to come on and sit down with us. I would have kept it civil. I would have kept it moderated. I would have kept it good faith. That's the only way we're going to get forward, right? If we don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past, we have to start talking to each other. We have to start stop seeing each other as just the enemy. And we have to realize that we all have the right to have a voice and an opinion. And I would have loved if they would have come on. The offer's still open. If they do happen to see this, who knows, right? I'm not as big as Hassan, so they might not see it at all, right? But if they do, the offer is still open. I want to hear their sides of the story. I do. And I don't want to get it wrong or strawman it, so I'd like to hear from them directly. That would have been great. Infallible Foul says, you see the left as the enemy? You literally said that. I see the... Do you really think that's what I said? Be honest. Do you think I see the left as the enemy? I'm the left, motherfucker. What I see as the enemy are the toxic far left extremists, the tankies. Second Thought put out a video recently saying that liberals are the enemy. And yes, I am his enemy. I am his enemy. He is right to identify me as such. I am the enemy to authoritarians. I am the enemy to those who seek to censor, to defame, to cancel, to call violence upon those who are innocent. I am the enemy of that. So yes, I am his enemy. But that is not the left. The left is better than that. The right is better than that. It is a problem of moderation versus extremism. I am the enemy of violent extremists, of illiberal extremists, both on the right and the left. That is who I am an enemy of. The left in general is not that. The left, the progressive movement, is not that in general, right? But yes, that is my final thoughts. That is my final note on this. And here we go. And Nerdy Rodent, Wick is center right. Go fuck yourself. No, I'm not. I am very much center left. Actually, a little further than center left, right? A little further left than center left. But no, I'm in that bubble. But for now, we're right out. We are going to Sad Kit Kat on Twitch, and who's streaming on YouTube? Anyone streaming on YouTube that we can go to? Who is going on YouTube? Let's see who I can redirect to. We can go to. Man, I don't even know. Where do you guys want to go? I don't know anyone who streams on YouTube. So, anyway, that's what we're gonna do. I love you all. I'll see you guys. Bye bye. Yeah. Wave, everyone. Wave. Well, it's only me. Remember, hit that follow button, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Tomorrow's going to be a great day. We got 6 p.m. Eastern, some political topics. Come on in. I'll see you guys later.